Chapter 1321. What? You're saying that you found a way to save Xiao Xiao? Tianlong froze and stared at Lin Yi with his eyes wide open. His breathing quickened as he asked, "Little Yi, tell me, have you found a way to save Xiao Xiao?" "Uncle Feng, don't move yet. Let's go downstairs and talk in my room." Lin Yi was afraid that Tianlong's voice would disturb Meng Yao and the others in the room, so he made a gesture. Okay. Tianlong's body was shaking as he followed Lin Yi downstairs to Lin Yi's room. He couldn't wait as he entered. "Lin Yi, tell me, do you have a way?" "Uncle Feng, I do, but I don't know if I can find the herb." "If I can, then it's not a problem," Lin Yi said. "But there's a problem, and that's time. There's not enough time. Even if I try my best, it'll take a month or longer. Xiao Xiao won't last that long." "Herb? There's news on the fire spirit's fruit?" Tianlong asked, surprised. "Yes, I found an ancient medicine saint in a medical book. He once treated a very important patient with the fire spirit's fruit. And this herb can neutralize the coldness in the human body. It's what Xiao Xiao needs," Lin Yi said. "And the place where this medicine saint found the fruit might be recorded in his medical notes. And the notes might be in his tomb." "Oh, you're saying you found the tomb of this medicine saint?" Tianlong said, surprised. "I found it and I'm preparing to go." Lin Yi nodded and told Tianlong about Lingshan's plan. "Lingshan invited me to the tomb, and as a reward, she'll let me copy all the medical books in there." "That's not a problem. Even if she doesn't copy it for you, I have a way to show it to you." Feng Tianlong wasn't worried about this. With his special department, it was easy for him to look up these things. "Does that mean there's hope for Xiao Xiao's illness?" "That should have been the case, but time waits for no man." Lin Yi smiled bitterly and sighed. "It's too late to know this news. If it were earlier, it wouldn't be like this." "That's not a problem. I can still help Xiao Xiao maintain her last bit of vitality," Feng Tianlong said. "You might not know this, but when Susu passed away, I made an ice coffin for her and sealed her in it. It can maintain her body's functions." "What? You actually thought of this method?" Lin Yi was slightly taken aback, then nodded. "Absolute zero? Although the department I'm in is a little special, it's still not up to that standard. But even if it doesn't reach that temperature, it won't be a problem to seal Xiao Xiao for decades." Feng Tianlong said. "I didn't think of this method. It was Lin Dongfang, your master. He mentioned an interesting story saying that someone was frozen in a glacier, and when the glacier melted, the person woke up. That's why I thought of this method. Of course, although this method can ensure that Xiao Xiao's body doesn't deteriorate, there's still a risk. Let's not talk about whether that joke was real or not. Even if it was real, there's a lot of coincidence involved, so if she freezes to death and can't recover, that's fine." Lin Yi, on the other hand, had a happy smile on his face. As long as Xiao Xiao's body didn't change, Lin Yi had his omnipotent energy, and he should be able to revive her. Everything was ready, and all that was left was the fire spirit's fruit. Seeing the smile on Lin Yi's face, Feng Tianlong didn't say much. Lin Yi must have a plan. "All right, I'll get someone to prepare and make another ice coffin." Feng Tianlong didn't dare delay, and immediately prepared to make the arrangements. "When you froze Auntie Susu back then, did you think that she could be healed in the future?" Lin Yi asked. "Yes, Miracle Dr. Lin Dongfang said that if a sky class were to help, Susu could be saved, but..." "Sky class?" Feng Tianlong smiled bitterly. "I've already begged, but no sky class would risk losing a level to save a normal person." You've seen a sky class before?" Lin Yi looked at Feng Tianlong, shocked. He didn't think that he'd come into contact with a sky class. "It's fine. I'm just a normal person now, let's not talk about that." Feng Tianlong evidently didn't want to talk about the past. He shook his head and didn't say anything else. Lin Yi saw Feng Tianlong's face and knew that he didn't want to talk about it anymore. So he didn't force him. "If that's the case, then I'm relieved. If it's possible, I'll find 2 fire spirits fruits and give one to Auntie Susu, but if there's only one, please forgive me, Uncle Feng. I can only give it to Xiao Xiao. If the fire spirit's fruit is split, no one can guarantee that it won't have any effect. You love your wife, but I also want my wife to live." "I know, I understand." Feng Tianlong couldn't help but laugh after hearing Lin Yi's words. "She's still my daughter. I believe that if I really gave the one and only fire spirit's fruit to Susu, even if she came back to life and knew that I didn't save Xiao Xiao, she would still kill me." Lin Yi nodded. Feng Tianlong was right. Which parent didn't want their child to be safe and happy? Even if they died, it didn't matter. He believed that if Xiao Susu woke up, she would have the same thought. Linny believed that if he and Xiao Xiao had a child and Linny found a fire spirit's fruit, Xiao Xiao would definitely give it to the child and not herself. After sending Feng Tianlong away, Lin Yi's mood brightened up. The dark clouds were swept away. As long as he solved the problem of time, everything else wasn't a problem. The fire spirit's fruit. Lin Yi believed that if he worked hard, he would definitely be able to find it. Even if he couldn't find it, he could wait until he leveled up to Sky Class to cure Xiao Xiao's illness. Drop levels? Lin Yi wasn't afraid. Did he drop too little? Because Xiao Xiao always dropped to 0, so this was the result no matter what, right? Negative levels. Chapter 1322. Zhang Wen and the professor got out of the police station without much hassle. They were victims, after all, and Lingshan only investigated how they got caught and tricked before letting them go. The problem now was that Scorpion had confessed, but they couldn't get the money back. This made Lingshan a little depressed. According to Scorpion, he was from the international criminal organization Red Conches. His purpose here was to get money for Red Conches, and the other was to work as an information center. Red Conch had been stirring up a storm in Songshan recently, so Lingshan didn't doubt Scorpion's words. Red Conch couldn't even catch the people from the occult investigation department, let alone Lingshan. This wasn't something she cared about, and so the underground arena case had to end here. After this case was over, Lingshan would have to focus on the grave robbing case. This was a battle of wits and courage against criminals, and Lingshan had to give it her all. After the underground arena case was over, Xie Yufeng continued to visit her every day. Lingshan was annoyed, but there was nothing she could do about it. Sometimes, she really wanted Lin Yi to break his legs, so he wouldn't bother her anymore. Lingshan, you're finally done with the case, right? I saw the papers, it was a complete victory. Congratulations, you've done a meritorious deed again. Yufeng had been paying attention to Lingshan. She said that she was busy with the case, and Yufeng knew that it was an excuse, but she really was busy. After the case was over, Yufeng planned to ask her out for a meal again. He'd like to see if she had any reason to reject him this time. That's because of everyone's hard work. Lingshan said faintly, do you have something to say? I've booked a table at Starlight Hotel tonight. I'm planning to hold a celebratory feast for you. How about it? Are you free tonight? Yufeng smiled. Sorry, not tonight, there's another case. Lingshan waved the file in her hand. I have to work overtime tonight, maybe next time? Yufeng was very troubled, and his face didn't look too good after hearing Lingshan's words. But Lingshan's reason was reasonable, and he couldn't say anything about it. He gritted his teeth. All right, I'll be going then. Lingshan frowned as she watched Yufeng leave. This guy had been chasing after her for a long time, and he'd always been a problem. She could brush him off now, but what would happen in the long run? There would come a day when Xie Yufeng would get impatient. And when would he get impatient? What would happen? At that time, House Song and House Yu might just fall out. What would happen to House Song's future then? Lingshan wasn't in a good mood at the thought. If it weren't for this marriage with Lingshan's current potential, it would have been normal for her to have a seat in the noble house meeting, and so Lingshan was very happy. But now, with the marriage with House Yu, things were different. On the surface, it looked like House Yu's support would make House Song stronger. But the problem was that Lingshan didn't like Yufeng. If she didn't have anyone she liked, then it'd be fine. For the sake of House Song, Lingshan wouldn't mind. But now that she had someone she liked, with her personality, she'd rather die than be with Yufeng. But this meant that there would be conflict. It was easy to get engaged, but hard to break off. This wasn't just about Yufeng lusting after her. It was about the face of the house. Of course, if House Yu broke off the engagement first, then House Song would have no choice but to accept it. After all, House Yu was strong, and in the noble house rankings, whoever was stronger had the right. The situation was reversed, and House Song was the weaker. If they broke off the engagement, House Yu might get angry and do something outrageous. There was a knock on the door and Lingshan sighed. Come in. It was Yu Tian. He was invited by Lingshan to discuss the grave robbing. Lingshan, what's wrong? Why do you look so sad? Yu might have given up on pursuing Lingshan, but he still cared about her. Her every movement and smile were all under Yu observation. Naturally, he had to ask when he saw the worried look on Lingshan's face. Yu bro, you're here. Lingshan forced a smile. Isn't it house use you phone? He came again just now and said that he had booked a table at the Starlight Hotel. He wants me to go tonight and have a celebratory feast for me. He's here again. Yu frowned. Can't he tell that you don't like him? He can tell, but so what? Lingshan shook her head. Didn't you see that too? You still don't give up? I'm different, at least I'm not as persistent as him. Yu felt a little awkward. But he seems to be a little too persistent? Who knows? I don't know how to reject him either. Lingshan said, the Noble House meeting is coming up, and I don't want House Song and House Yu to turn against each other. It doesn't benefit House Song at all. But, how about this? I talk to you, Feng. We're both men, it's easier to talk. If we ask him to give up and back off, it won't affect House Song and House Yu. Yu sighed. Let Yu Feng cancel the engagement, that way we can save our face. Yu sighed. It's no use, Yu Feng's different from you. He's someone who won't give up until he gets what he wants. I see the possessiveness in his eyes. He won't give up that easily. Lingshan smiled bitterly. He's an unreasonable person. No matter what, we still have to try. Yu had a rough idea of Yu Feng's personality from what Lingshan told him, domineering and unreasonable. But seeing how troubled Lingshan was, he wanted to share some of her burden. It's fine, I don't want to drag you and House Chen into this. Lingshan said with a wave of her hand, your House Chen can't even save yourself, it'll be good enough if you can stay in the Noble House meeting. Maybe I should talk to Linny about it? Maybe he can do something? Yu asked after some thought. We'll talk about it later, Linny seems pretty busy these days. Lingshan said, let's just brush him off for now, we'll talk to him if it really doesn't work. Chapter 1323. Alright, we'll talk about it later then. Yu nodded. This was Lingshan's private matter after all, and he couldn't say too much about it. He was just giving a suggestion from a friend's perspective. Yu bro, I called you here to discuss the operation in a couple of days. I actually have some good news for you. Lingshan shook her head, throwing Yu Feng's worries to the back of her head. Oh, what good news? Yu paused. Don't tell me that Linny agreed to join this operation? That's right, you're right. Lingshan nodded. With Linny joining us, this operation might be a lot smoother. Yeah, we're both golden class and you're a golden class late phase peak. But facing those evil grave robbers, I'm still worried that something might go wrong. Yu nodded. But this way, Linny and I will be the couple, and you'll only be the follower, Lingshan said, a little embarrassed. Naturally, don't worry, I won't have any thoughts. I've thought it through already. Yu smiled. I support you and Linny being together. I still have some thoughts, but I've let it go. Alright, then this operation is set. Me, Linny, and you will do it together. As for the others, you don't need to bring them. Lingshan said. According to the information, the couple likes to work alone. And they don't like to bring too many underlings. Sometimes they only bring one follower. In fact, it's not always good to have more people in a grave robber. There's a lot of traps in the graveyard and one mistake and you'll die. It's fine if you have a good follower. But normal followers are just a burden. That's true. Yu said. When do we leave? I've already contacted the other grave robbers. You better follow up on Buojia's side. I can't do much. He said he told us everything he knows, but I feel like he's hiding something. Lingshan shrugged, a little regretful. This guy's really tight-lipped. Other than the things he told us, no matter what I did, he never spilled anything. However, his words were too rigorous and his thoughts were too clear. Even if a normal person were to tell the truth, there would still be some mistakes or omissions when saying the same truth so many times. However, he didn't. It was as if he had prepared a draft. This person's mind is too meticulous, but he's an expert in learning, so it's normal for his IQ to be higher than ordinary criminals. Chen Yutian said, but you don't have to worry about it too much. I think he probably told Linny what he didn't say. It's probably about the medical books in Zhang Liju's tomb. It doesn't have much to do with us. That's possible. Lingue remembered that Boisja said he was going to give Linny something. To Linny, the only things that counted as benefits were money and medical books. Boisja didn't know Linny, but he knew that Linny was a skilled doctor. He couldn't give Linny more than these two things. After that, Ling Shan and Yuqian started to discuss the details of the mission, but most of it was just on paper. They didn't know what it was like inside the tomb, how dangerous it was, and what they were doing now was just to make sure they didn't have to worry about anything when it happened. Today was Xiao Xiao's birthday, and Meng Yao went to the supermarket with Shu early in the morning. They bought a lot of fresh fruits, preparing to make a fruit cake. Tang Yun was kneading the dough and making the cake base while Linny told Xiaobo to buy butter. The miss had all the cooking utensils in the house, and Linny was preparing to make a cake for Xiao Xiao. This wasn't hard for Linny. There weren't any cake shops in Star West Village, and Linny and Old Lin's birthdays were always made by Linny himself. Linny was by Xiao Xiao's side, looking at the thick jacket she was wearing, looking so down. He couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Xiao, don't worry too much. Didn't I tell you already? Uncle Feng will prepare an ice coffin for you and seal you up like your mother. I'll find the fruit for sure. Yeah, I believe you. I'm not worried, I'm just cold. Xiao Xiao said weakly. Actually, I'm really happy today. Linny nodded. Xiao Xiao had been like this ever since she woke up 2 days ago. It was probably because she was supposed to be dead, but Linny forcefully extended her life for 2 more days. Naturally, she didn't have much energy left. Alright, it's your birthday, don't knit anymore. Let's put it off for a day. Linny said as he saw Xiao Xiao pick up the needle and start knitting again. Let me knit. I'm afraid I won't make it in time. Who knows if I'll be able to live past tomorrow. Xiao Xiao shook her head and continued. Didn't I say that you won't die? Linny said. You can knit it when you come back to life. That won't do, I want to give it to you now. Xiao Xiao said, who knows how long it'll be before I can come back to life. Linny didn't stop Xiao Xiao from saying that. He got up and went to the kitchen to help Tang Yun with the cake. The doorbell rang and Tang Yun went to open the door. It was Su Shirhan. Linny had called her earlier, inviting her to Xiao Xiao's birthday banquet. She booked a ticket to leave today, but for Xiao Xiao she changed it to tomorrow. Han, you're here. Tang Yun was surprised, not expecting Su Shirhan to actually come. Yeah, where's Xiao Xiao? I brought her a present. Su Jinghan said as she took out a gift bag. In the living room, Han, you play with Xiao Xiao for a while. I'm making a cake with Linny, I can't stay with you guys for now. Tang Yun showed Su Shirhan her hand that was covered in flour. Alright, go on then. Right, do you need my help? Su Shirhan asked. No need, just accompany Xiao Xiao. Tang Yun shook her head. Han, you're here. Xiao Xiao greeted Su Shirhan weakly. Xiao Xiao, what's wrong? Why are you so weak? Why are you wearing a jacket at home? Su Shirhan's eyes went wide when she saw Xiao Xiao. It's nothing, haha, maybe I'm dying? Xiao Xiao smiled. Chapter 1324. Shirhan fell silent. Xiao Xiao had seen through life and death, but she still felt a little uncomfortable. Seeing a friend she just met leave made her heart heavy. Alright, Han, let's not talk about this. Linny Honey said that he can cure me, so he definitely can. Who knows, maybe you'll come back in a few years and find me alive again. Xiao Xiao saw that Shirhan wasn't in a good mood and started consoling her. Shirhan paused. Naturally, she didn't know about the ice coffin, so it was a little weird. It's nothing. What did you get me? Let me see. Xiao Xiao changed the topic. An album I recorded for you myself. Most of the songs are covers, but there's nothing special about it. I've never released it before, Shirhan said as she handed the gift to Xiao Xiao. Wow, not bad at all. I love it. Xiao Xiao happily put the gift away. Meng Yao, Yushu and Kongfen all came back one after another. Gooden, Yuan, Fatty Lai and Feng Tianlong were all invited as well. After the cake was done, everyone sat around the dining table and started singing the birthday song. Everyone knew about Xiao Xiao, but no one would bring it up right now. They didn't look sad either. Everyone happily gave their blessings. I'm so touched. This is the first time I've had such a lively birthday, Xiao Xiao said emotionally. I used to celebrate my birthdays with my dad at most, but this time I have so many good friends. Alright, time to turn off the lights and cut the cake. Yushu lit up the candles on the cake and happily turned off the lights in the dining room. In an instant, the dining room turned dark, and only the candlelight flickered. Xiao Xiao's face was flushed from the candlelight, and she looked exceptionally beautiful behind the candlelight. Xiao Xiao, you're 1 year older now. Do you have any wishes? Tianlong smiled at his daughter. Hearing that Lin Yi had a solution, Feng Tianlong let out a sigh of relief. Not only was there hope for Xiao Xiao, but there was also hope for his wife to wake up. This made his 20 years of gloomy mood finally see some light. I can't tell you. Xiao Xiao blushed, but under the candlelight, no one could see her blushing. Then let's all stop talking and let Xiao Xiao make a wish? Shirhan suggested. All right. Xiao Xiao, hurry up and make a wish. Tell me secretly after you're done. Yushu said. Haha. Xiao Xiao nodded and clasped her hands together, closing her eyes as she silently made a wish. Xiao Xiao looked like she'd seen through life and death, and didn't fear death anymore, but in truth she didn't want to die. Especially with a boyfriend like Lin Yi and friends like Meng Yao, Yushu, Tang Yun and Shirhan, she didn't want to die. And so she made a wish, hoping that Lin Yi would be able to cure her so that she could be with them forever. Xiao Xiao sincerely made her wish, and the beautiful images of the future appeared in her mind. She'd have children with Lin Yi, Tang Yun, Meng Yao, Xiao Xiao and Shirhan. It was simply too beautiful, and she couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. No one spoke in the dining room, everyone was waiting for Xiao Xiao to make her wish, but after a while Xiao Xiao didn't look up. Lin Yi felt that something was wrong. Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi called. Xiao Xiao didn't reply. Lin Yi stood up and rushed over, checking Xiao Xiao's breathing and pulse. As expected, it was the same faint feeling she had when she was unconscious. Her illness had acted up, and she couldn't make it past her 20th birthday. Lin Yi subconsciously wanted to bite his wrist and use his blood to heal her. But Jiao Yazi's voice sounded. Don't waste your efforts. The cold in her body has seeped into her bones, and it's not something you can reverse. No matter how much blood you use, it won't do anything. The most important thing right now is to use the method you thought of before to seal her in an ice coffin, and then go find the fruit. Lin Yi paused before coming back to his senses. He stopped biting his wrist and sighed. Uncle Feng, prepare the ice coffin. I can't do it this time. There's nothing I can do. Lin Yi's words stunned everyone. Lin Yi had pulled Xiao Xiao back from the gates of hell time and time again, and they thought that he could do it this time as well. But they didn't expect Lin Yi to say something like that. Xiao Xiao. Tang Yin stood up first, her face pale. Lin Yi, is there no other way? Seal her in an ice coffin as soon as possible. I'll find the fruit, that's the only way. Lin Yi said seriously. Of course, when I break through to Sky Class, I'll be able to save Xiao Xiao, so don't be too sad. Just pretend that she's asleep. Lin Yi was sad as well, but he didn't want others to be sadder, so he tried to comfort them. Meng Yao, Yushu, and Shirhan all looked sad as well. The day had finally come, and it was a good thing that they were all mentally prepared for it. I'll contact the ice coffin right now. Tianlong nodded quickly and started making the call. The usually lively House Chu's villa had returned to its usual calmness, and even the lively Yushu had become quiet. Xiao Xiao's death wasn't something that could be relieved in just 1 or 2 days. Xiao Xiao wasn't in the villa before, but it was a completely different feeling from now. Shield bro, when are you going grave robbing? Yushu urged Lin Yi almost every day, asking him when he was going. Lin Yi, I'll leave Xiao Xiao to you. Meng Yao reminded Lin Yi often that he had a mission, a responsibility. Lin Yi, as long as you save Xiao Xiao, I'll agree to anything. We can play together. Even a threesome is fine. Tang Yin, who was always shy, was even flirting with Lin Yi for Xiao Xiao. Chapter 1325. And so, Lin Yi spent these days researching the mechanisms of the tomb, and the blueprints and instructions Lu Buojia gave him were read over and over by Lin Yi. But even with the blueprints, Lin Yi didn't slack off. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't trust Lu Buojia, but the information wasn't complete. Lu Buojia's information only talked about the mechanisms on the outskirts of the tomb, but didn't talk about the facilities inside. After all, Lu Buojia himself only observed from the outside, and didn't go in, so no one knew what the situation inside was like. Every afternoon it was still Lin Yi, the Miss Shu and Yin Yun eating together, but something seemed to be missing. No one seemed to want to talk, and the only thing they talked about was urging Linny to go rob the tomb and find a way to save Xiao Xiao. Without Xie Yufeng, the school became peaceful again, and Pin Liang tolerated it for the time being. He didn't have any conflicts with Lin Yi and the others. The days went on, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day of the tomb robber. Lin Yi said goodbye to the Miss Shu and Yin Yun, but they didn't seem reluctant at all. Instead, they sighed happily. We're finally leaving. Lin Yi didn't know what to say. He smiled bitterly. Wait for my good news. But you have to be careful. Tang Yun said seriously to us, Xiao Xiao is important, but you're important as well. Don't force yourself and do what you can. As long as there's life, there's hope. If something happens to you, not only us but even Xiao Xiao will lose hope. Yeah, Linny, you have to be careful. Meng Yao nodded. I understand, don't worry. Linny nodded and said with a smile. Before leaving, Linny called Gooden into the villa. Even though Songshan's enemies hadn't come knocking on their door, Linny was still worried about the girl's safety. It was better to be safe than sorry. Even with Faubert around, Faubert was only a peak late phase golden class, and while he could deal with normal opponents, he wouldn't be able to handle the stronger ones. Gooden, I'll leave Yao Yao Shu and Yin Yun's safety to you when I'm not here. Linny said. Don't worry, boss. Leave this to me. Gooden patted his chest. I'll make sure to protect them when you're not here. But your body is special. You have to remember what I said. Linny said seriously. If a master comes looking for trouble, and you don't have the confidence, just kill him straight away, don't hold back. You're strong, but if a mystic's punch hits you, you'll die for sure. And if the opponent isn't very strong, then cripple his resistance first, then ask the mastermind behind the scenes. I'll remember. Gooden remembered Lin Yi's words. He looked honest, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that Lin Yi was telling the truth. That night, Gooden moved into the Chu villa, Lin Yi's room. As for Yuan Yuan, they had to leave for now. Gooden and Yuan Yuan didn't want to leave, but as far as he was concerned, the mission his boss gave him was the most important. Lin Yi, on the other hand, went to the police station to meet up with Lingshan and Yu Qian. There were some things that needed to be done in unison. The other grave robbers weren't just for show, after all. If their disguise was exposed, then it'd be over. Yu Qian, bro, Lingshan, you guys should have come up with a detailed plan for the grave robbing, right? Just show it to me. Linny didn't beat around the bush, getting straight to the point. Linny didn't need to be courteous with Yu Qian and Lin Yi, especially with Lingshan and Lin Yi. It's done, it's here. Yu Qian nodded and handed the plan to Lin Yi. Linny didn't say much as he sat on the sofa and started flipping through the book. He'd only skimmed through the tomb raiding plans. It was all theoretical stuff with no practical use at all. He'd only read the introduction to the couple in detail, including their habits, style, etc., 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 etc. The couple rarely interacts with others? Even the other grave robbers don't know their true faces? After Linny finished reading the information, he asked, in other words, we don't have to deliberately disguise ourselves? That's right. The couple is a very cautious and cunning tomb robber. If it weren't for the coincidence that I found them at the border, I wouldn't have been able to kill them. Chen Yutian nodded. This way it saves us a lot of trouble. They're a rather unique existence in the tomb raiding world. Their skills are high and they're cunning. Their peers love and hate each other as well. Sometimes they're greedy and want a piece of every tomb, but other times they can't do without them. They're very experienced. Linny nodded. Right now, it's me and Lingshan acting as the couple. You're our foundation, right? That's right. Yutian nodded. You're the strongest among the three of us, and the male is also the strongest among the couple. What's your strength now? Or early phase golden class? Linny looked at Yutian and asked. Yes, I'm sorry, but I'm still early phase golden class. Yutian said, a little embarrassed. He hadn't been able to raise his strength because of his talent. Then I'll raise you to peak late phase golden class tonight. You'll be able to protect yourself like Lingshan, Linny said faintly. Ah. Yutian froze. Peak late phase golden class? Did he hear wrongly? Linny was going to raise his strength? And looking at Linny's tone, it seemed like he was talking about something very normal. You should know how Lingshan raised her strength. Stop wasting time and start now. Linny looked at Yuqian's shocked face and smiled impatiently. Chapter 1326. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Once the strength of these people increased, even the hidden families and ancient sects would not dare to act rashly in front of him. If he didn't want to be bullied, he had to keep increasing his strength. But at the same time, he also had to help the people around him. This wasn't just helping him, it was also for their own good. Otherwise, once Lin Yi's strength reached a certain level, others wouldn't dare to do anything to him. But what if they tried to do something to his friends and family? Although Lin Yi would definitely go crazy for revenge, there were still some brainless people out there. All right. Yuqian took a deep breath and said solemnly, I can't thank you enough. Don't say those useless things. Why are you being so polite with me? Lin Yi scolded with a smile. You'll only be able to protect Shu when you're strong enough. I can't protect her forever. You'll still be the big brother in the future. But, you and Shu. Yuqian actually approved of his sister being with Lin Yi. Although there was still Lingshan here, Tang Yun there, and Xiao Xiao there, but on one hand, Yuqian could see that his sister really liked Tang Yun, and on the other hand he admired Lin Yi. Let's not talk about this. Lin Yi waved his hand, ending the topic. He put his hands on Yuqian's meridians. Start channeling your arts, I'm going to start. Alright. Yuqian nodded and Lin Yi closed his eyes and entered the jade space, channeling the art of dragon mastery. In the next moment, a large amount of qi was absorbed into Yuqian's body. Even if Yuqian had heard Lingshan talk about how she leveled up once, he couldn't help but be shocked. Could this be the legendary power imparting? The purity of this qi was something Chun Yuqian had never seen before. Even in the deep mountains and forests, the qi he absorbed wasn't half as pure as this. Chun Yuqian didn't dare to waste any time and started absorbing as much qi as he could. Lingshan had already been through Lin Yi's leveling up, and so she wasn't too surprised. She sat quietly on the side, protecting the two, not letting anyone disturb them. After midnight, Lin Yi stopped channeling, and Yuqian reached the peak of the late phase of the golden class without a doubt. What Lin Yi wasn't surprised was that he still stopped at the bottleneck, unable to take another step forward. I'm really at the peak of the late phase of the golden class? Yuqian opened his hands in disbelief, shocked. Is this for real? In such a short period of time, I actually have this kind of strength. It's like a dream. I felt the same way back then. Lingshan looked at Lin Yi, who didn't seem to be affected at all, smiling bitterly. Just how strong was this person? Even if it was grandma, she'd lose some strength when she passed on her grandpa's strength. And there was no way she could raise someone from the early phase of the golden class to the peak of the late phase in such a short time. How many levels did he cross in between? This was simply inconceivable. That's all I can do for now. Whether or not you can reach the mystic class depends on your own efforts. Lin Yi said regretfully, if I want to raise you guys to the peak of the late phase of the mystic class, I'll have to work hard to become an earth class. You can still raise. Yuqian's eyes widened. He didn't think that the day Lin Yi became an earth class would be the day he became a mystic late phase peak. This was too hard to accept, wasn't it? But the truth was the truth, and he had to believe it after all. He'd seen it with his own eyes. From the early phase of the golden class to the peak of the late phase in one night. The speed was like sitting on a rocket. Alright, let's all get some rest. I'm tired too, don't we have to leave early tomorrow morning? Lin Yi had been using every night to train, so that if he couldn't find the fruit, he'd be able to prolong Xiao Xiao's life when he became a sky class. The effect wasn't as good as the fruit, but it was a safer backup plan. After all, Lin Yi was sure that he'd reach the sky class one day. Lingshan and Yuqian didn't object since it was getting late. But they were in Lingshan's office and sleeping was a problem. In Lingshan's break room, there was a sofa that could fit two people if they squeezed together. But in the outer room, there was a sofa that could only fit one person. Lin Yi, you and Lingshan can sleep on the bed. I'll sleep on the sofa. Yuqian had already accepted the fact that Lingshan and Lin Yi were sleeping together, so he suggested. Lingshan blushed but didn't object. In her heart, she'd long since considered herself as Lin Yi's woman. He'd seen everything and even tried to seduce him. Why would she care about sleeping with Lin Yi? She couldn't wait. It's okay. I'm not sleeping, I can recover by training. I'll just rest on the chair, you guys sleep, Linny said faintly. All right. Yutian nodded. I'll sleep on the sofa then. Yutian could see the disappointment on Lingshan's face. But this wasn't something he could meddle in. It was better to sleep first. Then I'll go rest too. Lingshan knew that Lin Yi was a man of his word. If he didn't want to go, there was no point in forcing him. After a night of silence, the three started their journey the next day, to the ancient tomb in the outskirts of Songshan City. The three of them were in an off-road car. It was Yutian's car. But the original license plate had been removed and replaced with a fake one. This was a common method used by grave robbers, and Lingshan and the others naturally followed suit. Although the tomb was in the outskirts of Songshan City, it was still quite far from the city proper, about 5 hours of driving. There were no highways and there were mountain roads in between, so 5 hours was a conservative estimate. Sure enough, when the three of them arrived at their destination, it was already evening. This was a very desolate foot of a mountain. At the foot of the mountain there was only a small village. It could be seen that the economy here was not very developed. The village was filled with bungalows, and the conditions were not very good. Chapter 1327. No need, let's go straight. We're all practitioners, we don't need to rest. Linny said faintly. Lingshan nodded. She'd forgotten that they were all practitioners, so she'd naturally suggest that they set up camp in a village to rest, but that wasn't necessary now. Then let's keep going. We should be there soon. Lingshan said. The road became more and more difficult to advance. There was almost no one in this area. Even the people in the nearby villages would not come to this place. This was because this was a mountain range, and it was mainly composed of rock cliffs. There were no wild fruits or animals. People could do nothing but look at the scenery here. The scenery here isn't bad. It's a good place to take pictures. Linny sighed. It's a pity that no matter how good the scenery is, we can't develop it into a tourist spot because of the seclusion. The villages nearby are too poor, and the infrastructure is too bad. It'd take too much investment to develop this place into a tourist spot. No company would invest that much money here, and we don't even know if there'll be any returns. Yutian said. Linny didn't understand business operations, and so he didn't comment on Yutian's words. The car drove for a while and the road got harder and harder. There were fewer trees on the side of the road, and there was nothing else other than desolate rocks. They'd thought that the scenery was pretty when they first entered the mountain range, but as time went on, it became boring and boring. Chun Yutian was right. This place wasn't suitable for a tourist spot. The scenery was too monotonous, and people who came here once wouldn't come back again. There was no point in staying here. We're almost there. We need to put on our masks. The tents in front might belong to the other tomb robbers. We need to be cautious and alert at all times. Don't let anyone see through us. Lingshan reminded. There's no need to be vigilant. Being too vigilant would only make people suspicious. Let's just do what we need to do. Linny said faintly. The couple's style is very overbearing and arrogant. The information mentioned that too. Everyone in the industry knows that. Why would they be cautious? You're right, I was too worried. Lingshan said, getting taught a lesson. With that, Linny, Lingshan, and Yutian put on the masks they'd prepared beforehand. These masks were all taken from the couple, and they were all original masks. They didn't even need to copy them. As the car got closer, they saw rows of tents and rows of vehicles not far away. Most of the vehicles were off-road vehicles, but there were also a few large trucks. They were probably loaded with living materials. These grave robbers had many underlings, unlike the couple who preferred to be alone. When Chun Yutian drove closer, a few men with assault rifles walked out of the tent. Behind them, a short and skinny man waved his hand, signaling Chun Yutian to stop. What are you doing? This is a military administrative area. There's construction in front of us. We can't go through. The short and thin man said lightly. If it were a normal tourist, they might have really believed the man's words and turned around to leave, but Chun Yutian came here with a purpose. Naturally, he wouldn't believe the man's words. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. There's wood in front, right? Chun Yutian said faintly. This was the newest entrance to the grave robbers' business. And he got it from Lu Buojia himself. He believed that the short and thin man would understand. Oh, the man said calmly. Heavenly King covers Earth Tiger. The previous sentence was a common opening in the tomb robbing industry, and this sentence was the agreed-upon secret code for this tomb robbing. If they could not answer, then sorry, the short and thin man would wave his hand, and the burly men with the submachine guns would not hesitate to open fire. If he could match the first sentence but not the second sentence, it was very likely that this person was also a member of the thief sect. He must have heard the news and wanted to fish in troubled waters to get some benefits. Therefore, the dark and thin man would never let these people have a share of the profits. Pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li. Chun Yutian said calmly. He got this secret code from the couple's logbook. Even Lu Buojia didn't know this secret code. The couple might have been afraid of forgetting this secret code, so they recorded it in their logbook. Both Yutian and Lingshan wanted to laugh when they first saw the signal. The first reaction most people would have was the pagoda suppressing the river monster, but it'd be a huge mistake if they were to say something like that out of their mouth. A friend from afar. May I ask which group you're from? The short and thin man's face softened a bit. He knew that this was the group they'd agreed on. Old hey, you don't even fucking recognize me anymore? Why were you wasting my time? Do you want me to make him run you over? Before Chun Yutian could say anything, Linny opened the car door unhappily and jumped down, scolding the man. According to Chun Yutian's information, this old hey was the leader of the Red Pagoda tomb robbers, as well as the discoverers of this tomb. The couple had a weird temper and thought highly of their skills, looking down on their peers. They weren't very popular usually, but when it came to difficult tombs like this, they had no choice but to invite them over. And so, Linny started scolding them as soon as he got out of the car. Male thief, you're still so bad-tempered. I'm just doing this for safety. The fewer people here, the more benefits we'll get. I'm just worried that someone might hear about this and come join in the fun. The short and thin man called Old Hay shook his head helplessly. He was pissed off, but there was nothing else he could do. Humph. Linny humphed coldly. Where are the others? Are they all here? My time is limited. Kung Bro, Hao Yi and James are all here. They're resting over there. The short and thin man said. Everyone's here? When is it starting? Linny asked. According to the information he'd read, there were only 5 groups of people who'd come this time, and one of the couples had already become him. The other 4 groups were all present. Chapter 1328. He only nodded. If you guys are hungry, you can buy some food over there. With that, the skinny man pointed at the 2 trucks not far away. No need, we brought our own food. Linny said faintly before getting back into the car. Yutian, on the other hand, drove off to find the camp. What the hell, an idiot! Beside the skinny man was a big man with a submachine gun. He spat out a mouthful of phlegm on the ground as he watched Linny's car leave. Does he really think he's some sort of big shot? He's so rich, and he brings his own food every time. Why didn't he get killed by the traps in the tomb? He's not on the same side as us, we don't get along well. Maybe he's worried that we'll poison his food. Old Hay shook his head and went back to the tent without saying anything else. Linny, you're not bad. Lingshan praised after the car was far away. I was so nervous just now, scared that Old Hay would see through us. His eyes are like sharp swords, like they can see through people's thoughts. But you got out of the car and started yelling at him. It's fine if he yelled at me. Linny said faintly. What do we do now? Set up a tent like them? Yes. According to the data, the couple doesn't have a good relationship with the other tomb robbers, so we don't need to visit them, we just need to wait here. Lingshan said. Linny nodded and started setting up the tent with Yutian. He then took out some food from the car and went into the tent. Old Hay had been watching Linny's group with his binoculars, and only breathed out in relief when he saw them setting up the tent like normal and not doing anything else. Although Old Black felt that there was nothing wrong with the burglar couple today and everything seemed normal for some reason, he felt that the male burglar couple gave off a dangerous feeling. It was different from before. Blackie shook his head. Perhaps he was being too sensitive. Inside the tent, Yutian and Lingshan were munching on bread and drinking mineral water. Linny, on the other hand, just ate something and started practicing. There was an endless amount of energy in the jade space that he could absorb, so skipping meals was fine. As for that piece of bread, it was just out of habit. Let's take turns to be on duty at night. One person will be on duty while the others sleep, Lingshan said as she ate. I don't feel too reassured. I'm worried that they'll notice something and do something bad to us. Not at the moment, but it's fine. You guys go to sleep. I'll keep watch. Linny said indifferently. My cultivation is no different from sleeping. I can sense everything that is happening outside. Lingshan's mouth was agape, but she didn't say anything. She knew how weird Linny was after all, and it wasn't a surprise to her. Xiaoke was about to die from tiredness. Money really wasn't that easy to earn. Earning some extra money to support the orphanage wasn't easy at all. Although the orphanage had received a huge donation from Songshan Songshan First School, more than 2 million, she couldn't just sit there and do nothing. She wouldn't let go of a chance to earn money. Songshan's anti-theft operation was still ongoing, and Xiaoke had no business to do at all. She had to look for other opportunities. She posted a mission on the Thief Store's website, and a tomb robber organization called Red Pagoda accepted her mission, asking her to help with the tomb robberies. And so Xiaoke came. But she didn't have a car. She did rent one before, but the driver would only drive her to the village in front at most. He wouldn't drive any further. It couldn't be helped. Xiaoke called a taxi, not a sedan. Driving on this kind of road would damage the chassis, and no amount of money would let her go. And so, Xiaoke could only walk after getting off the car. Although she was the successor of Fian sect, and her qigong was amazing, walking 10 kilometers in one go was still exhausting. After all, she was a girl, and her stamina wasn't that good to begin with. Damn it, I'm finally here. Xiaoke was on the verge of tears when she saw the tent not far away. She couldn't help but cheer and use her qigong to run forward. Who are you? Old He was still blocking Xiaoke's path with a few men with guns. People from the Fian sect, Xiaoke stopped and said while gasping for breath. You walked here? Old He was confused when he saw someone running over, but he didn't expect it to be the Fian sect he was waiting for. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Fian sect's people were amazing running this far? Yeah. Why didn't you send a car to pick me up? I'm so tired. Xiaoke rubbed her waist and complained. Heavenly King covers Earth Tiger. Old He felt that this girl in black was most likely from Fian sect, but he still asked out of caution. Pagoda bearing Heavenly King Li. Xiaoke said. All right, I got it. Let me see what the tomb looks like. We should talk about our conditions. Of course. Please come with me. Old Black nodded. He didn't dare to offend the people of the Fian sect. The Fian sect was an established sect in the Thief sect. They had a unique understanding of secret mechanisms. This time, I'm not the only one participating in this grave robbing operation. So we need to discuss how much we can give you. I don't have the final say. Of course, it all depends on your own ability. Old Black's words were very clear. If you want more benefits, you have to show some ability. If you can enter the tomb smoothly, then it wouldn't be a problem to give you a share. But if you're not good enough, then you won't be of much use. At most, they'll just give you a reward. All right. Xiaoke nodded. Linny was training when footsteps came from outside the tent. Linny immediately came back to reality and stood up. Someone's here, but it's not a master. Tian, go take a look. Yuqian was here as a follower, so Linny called him Lil Tian. Chapter 1329. What's the matter? Yuqian asked faintly. The man paused upon seeing Yuqian come out. He didn't expect the thief couple's follower to be such a master, noticing him walking over. But he wasn't surprised. Which tomb robber didn't have masters by their side? Even Old He had a mystic class master by his side. These people lived their lives with their heads hanging on their waists. One wrong move and they die in a tomb. Hey bro wants the two of you to go to his tent. The guests are here, and he wants to have a meeting to discuss the profit sharing. The man didn't beat around the bush, getting straight to the point. All right, you go back first. We'll be right there. Yuqian nodded. The man didn't say much. This was how the couple were, and they didn't interact much. He turned and left after informing them. Yutian went back to the tent and told Linny and Lingshan what the man wanted. The man wasn't speaking softly, and Linny and Lingshan heard him clearly. The three prepared themselves and left the tent, heading to Old Hay's. Old Hay's tent was the outermost one, in charge of interrogations and security. Linny's tent, on the other hand, was the innermost one, and so by the time they reached Old Hay's tent, the others were already there. With the couple's usual style, they wouldn't take the initiative to greet other people, and so Linny and Lingshan found a place to sit down. Yutian, on the other hand, stood behind them as a bodyguard. Kung Bro was the leader of a group of tomb robbers, and Kung Bro was just his nickname. As the name suggested, his face was full of holes, as if he had some sort of illness. In short, he was terrifyingly ugly. Old Hao, on the other hand, was an old man in his 50s. According to the information, he was a senior in the tomb raiding industry, highly respected and experienced. This time, Old Black was afraid that he wouldn't be able to take the tomb for himself, and that others would have other ideas, so he got Old Hao to take charge. The last person was a foreigner named James. But thinking about it, James was just his alias. It was impossible for people in this industry to show their real names. Many foreigners were interested in antiques, but not many of them were here to rob tombs. This James is a capable person. It was said that when the tomb was first discovered, he was there as well, and Kung Bro was there as well. Only Old Hao joined later. Alright, everyone's here. It's not the first time we've worked together, so there's no need for introductions. I'll introduce you all to an external helper, a famous one in the Steel sect, the successor of the Fian sect. With that, Old Hay waved his hand, and Xiaoka walked into the tent. Linny and Lingshan paused when they saw Xiaoka enter the tent. Why was she here? But when Old Hay introduced the Fian sect, he suddenly remembered that the first time he met Xiaoka, this girl had claimed that she was a disciple of the Fian sect, and wanted to compete with him. Who would have thought that Xiaoka would be invited by Old Hay as well? Linny and Lingshan exchanged glances, both a bit surprised and a bit alarmed. They couldn't let Xiaoka find out about their identities, at least not in front of everyone. Otherwise, they'd have no chance at all. Everyone knows what the Fian sect does, and I'm sure everyone here knows about the traps in the tomb. We don't have much confidence, and Lu Buojia isn't helping us, so we can only ask for external help. Old Hay said, let's split the benefits before we rob the tomb, so we don't have to worry about conflicts later. I agree. We need to have rules when we're working together. Otherwise we'll get blinded by greed. Old Hao was the first to agree. He was here to hold the line, so naturally he agreed with Old Hay's point of view. I agree as well. It's better to be clear about this. Kung Bro nodded. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. I agree. James said in a weird tone. I have no objections, Linny said faintly. Alright, since no one has any objections, then let's start splitting the benefits. I have a suggestion. I wonder if anyone has any objections? Old Hay said. We found this tomb together, but I was the one who got the clue first, so I should take 30%. Yes, that's a good idea. Everyone nodded. Every profession had its own rules, and as the one who gave the clue, Old Hay naturally had the right to take 30%. Kung Bro, Old Hao, the duo and James, you guys take 15% each, and the remaining 10% goes to the Sparrow Girl from the Fian sect. Old Hay said. Of course, the Sparrow Girl needs to show her true strength. Sure. After a moment of silence, Kung Bro, Old Hao, and James all nodded in agreement. There had to be a lot of treasures in this sort of dangerous tomb. But if they didn't have someone powerful, they wouldn't be able to get in. 15% didn't sound like much, but it was still a huge amount of wealth. Moreover, this distribution was clearly the most reasonable. Although Old Black took double, he was the one who put in the most effort. Moreover, after he received the information, he didn't monopolize it. Instead, he shared it with everyone to find the exact location of the ancient tomb. 15% is too little. I want 20. At this moment, Linny spoke up. Lingshan paused, a little annoyed at Linny for messing with her. Even if he wanted 100%, it wouldn't be his in the end, so why did he have to do this? But Linny had already spoken, and she couldn't go against it. She could only see how Linny would handle this. Oh, Old Hay frowned. He didn't expect the male thief to speak up. But he didn't want to piss off this male thief, since he wasn't much weaker than Buajia and the Fian sect. Male thief, how do you think we should split it? I don't care how others split it, I want 20%. Linny said domineeringly. That's Old Hay sighed. This distribution is the most reasonable. If you wanted an extra 5%, I wouldn't be able to take it from the others, so I'd have to take it from my share. But why should I give you that extra 5%? Chapter 1330. Linny nodded and didn't say anything else. Lingshan and Yuqian, on the other hand, started to admire Lin Yi. The more Lin Yi was so calculative, the more he fit the image of a thief couple. These people wouldn't suspect anything. Sparrow Girl, what about you? Do you have any objections? Old Hay turned to Xiaoka. I'll give you 10%, and that's according to the rules. Nothing more, nothing less. Technological foreign aid is 10% of the profits. No problem. Xiaoka nodded agreeably. In fact, Old Hay was very fair, since everyone was paying the same price. But let's get this straight up front. If you can't solve anything, then I'll just give you some money and let you go back. Old Hay said. This 10% is still valuable. I understand, Xiaoka said confidently. You know Fian Sec's reputation, right? They keep their word. But I want cash for this 10%, not items. What Xiaoka lacked was money, and she had no use for the treasures in the tomb. It would be hard to get rid of them, so she suggested it directly. Sure, but you know the rules. The discount rule is 20% off the market price. Old Hay said. We can't get rid of them immediately. There's always a risk if we keep them in our hands. Understood. Xiaoka nodded. But if you don't want them, I can pick them up, right? That's up to you. Old Hay nodded. Linny didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Xiaoka's word. This girl really was a little money grubber. She didn't want to let go of anything at all. Why would she want to pick up things that other people didn't want? But no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. These grave robbers had very high standards, and they wouldn't be interested in normal things. Picking them up would take up too much space, and some small things like gold and silver would be good for Xiaoka. After confirming the division of benefits, there was nothing else to talk about. Old Hay said. Since no one has anything to say, then it's settled. I don't want any conflicts of interest. I think with Old How here, everyone can follow the rules. Everyone nodded, but no one knew how much sincerity was in this nod. When the benefits were not big enough, everyone could naturally abide by the rules, but once the benefits were to the point of making people jealous, then it was hard to say. I'll head back first. Linny said faintly as he stood up and walked out of the tent, Lingshan and Yuqian following closely behind. Let's all get some rest. We'll enter the tomb together tomorrow morning. Old Black nodded and said. Back in the tent, Lingshan said immediately, that Fian sect. But Linny put a hand over her mouth and made a shushing gesture. Linny, on the other hand, continued. Humph, the Fian school might not be able to do that. We have some key information about this tomb in our hands. Even if they could solve it before, the last step is still up to us. Otherwise, everyone will die. With that, Linny pointed at a corner of the tent. Lingshan and Yuqian looked at where Linny was pointing, and saw that there was a listening device installed on the side of the tent. Lingshan's heart skipped a beat. She was lucky. She had been too rash, and if it weren't for Linny's quick reaction, she would have been exposed. She wanted to say that Fian Sec's flying sparrow girl was Xiaoka. Wasn't that the female thief she was after? Her identity would have been exposed if she said that, and Old Black's assault rifles would have surrounded them. Even if the three of them managed to escape, the mission would have been a failure. Tian, check the inside of the tent, see if anyone did anything to it. After saying that, Linny seemed to have remembered something, ordering Yuqian. Yes, Yuqian pretended to check the insides of the tent. It'd be too fake if he found the listening device right away. He wanted to search for a while before taking it out. He'd also check the other parts of the tent to see if anyone had done anything to it. Old Black was listening to Linny and Lingshan's conversation with the listening device, and he heard Linny telling Yuqian to check if anyone had done anything to the tent. He was troubled. He thought to himself that this couple was still on guard against others, but that was to be expected. Who wouldn't be on guard in this line of work? He'd asked his men to put a listening device in someone else's tent when they were discussing. Wasn't that to guard against others as well? After hearing Lin Yi's words, Old Black finally understood why Lin Yi was so confident in asking for 20%. He had a trump card. He actually had information on this tomb. Old Black's heart palpitated as he listened to Lin Yi talk about the mechanism. Luckily, he'd agreed to Lin Yi's request. Otherwise, wouldn't they all be dead in the tomb? Wouldn't it be a huge loss if Lin Yi took advantage of them all? Not long after, it was obvious that the male thief's subordinate, Xiao Tian, had found the listening device. There was only a creaking sound, and there was no sound from the earpiece. The listening device had been destroyed. Didn't expect this couple to have a trump card up their sleeves. No wonder they were so cocky. One of Old Black's underlings said. He was in charge of listening to the other tomb robbers, but the others didn't say anything important, and he carefully removed the listening device. Evidently, no one here was an idiot. They were all people with some tricks up their sleeves. Old Black shook his head. This was the only thing he could do. Everyone had spoken nicely, and there wasn't anything wrong with the distribution of benefits, but who knew what would happen tomorrow? Yuxiaoka didn't bring a tent, but Old Black gave her one. She didn't have the money to buy things from the supply truck, which belonged to another faction in the Steel sect. There was a group of people in the Steel sect who didn't participate in tomb robberies, but would go wherever there were tomb robberies to sell their daily necessities. They had everything, but the price was ridiculously high. This line of work had been around for a long time, and they'd gotten permission from a few respected seniors in the sect. Chapter 1331. Familiar? Of course, don't underestimate these people. They had the support of the big bosses of the thief sect. If anyone dared to touch them, they would be ostracized by the entire thief sect. These grave robbers were all rich, and they weren't afraid of the high prices of their daily necessities. Most importantly, they were too lazy to carry it. However, the thief couple was a special case. Although these two people were incomparably arrogant, they were very vigilant. They were always on guard against others trying to harm them. Therefore, regardless of clothing, food, shelter, or transportation, they rarely bought anything from others. Instead, they carried it themselves. Xiaoka knew this rule as well. She carried a backpack filled with biscuits and water, as well as some essential tools. A little money grubber like her wouldn't spend a lot of money on food. After returning to the tent, Xiaoka set up an alarm system before laying down on the mat to sleep. Although they were all from the thief sect, Xiaoka was a girl, and she had to be careful when she was out alone. Today, why does the male thief's voice sound so familiar? Xiaoka murmured to herself, have I seen him somewhere before? Xiaoka was part of the thieves' sects and had participated in a couple of tomb traps, but she'd never met the couple before. Both of them were wearing masks, and if she'd seen them before, she should have had a deep impression of them, but she hadn't seen them before. Could it be that she'd seen the couple without their masks? Xiaoka froze, shocked by her own bold idea. Was that even possible? Forget it. Xiaoka shook her head and didn't want to think about it anymore. The couple was wearing masks, so it was obvious that they didn't want people to see their real faces. If she went over to see them, they might hold a grudge against her. Xiaoka was here for money. As for other things, she didn't want to cause more trouble. As for Xiaoka, old He didn't eavesdrop. Xiaoka was alone, and he wouldn't be able to get anything out of it. The Fian sect was known for their cautiousness. There was no need for him to do anything unnecessary. On Lin Yi's side, after Yutian removed the bug, Lin Yi glared at Lingshan. Be careful next time, think before you speak. Like an idiot. Aya, don't talk about the silly girl, I know I'm in the wrong. Lingshan blushed, embarrassed by Lin Yi's words. I didn't know these grave robbers were this cunning, planting bugs here. In the future, unless I take the initiative to ask, don't talk about the plan, Lin Yi instructed. The jade had warned them of danger when they entered the tent, and so Lin Yi subconsciously covered Lingshan's mouth and said something random, not expecting to actually find a listening device in the tent. I understand. Lingshan nodded obediently. Chen Yutian learned from Lin Yi. He didn't speak before because he didn't have the time to. Now that he was reminded by Lin Yi, he realized that these tomb robbers were much more cunning than he thought. When are you going to arrest them? Linny asked. With their numbers and weapons, it's not hard for us to escape, but it'll be hard to take them all down. We'll play it by ear. Once all the traps are solved, I'll inform my colleagues to surround this mountain range and take them all. Yutian said. All of them? I hope so. Linny smiled and didn't say anything else. The map Wuja gave him was already hard enough. Who knew what other traps were waiting for him? This ancient medicine saint was very famous, and he knew a lot of people from all walks of life. The traps in the tomb were all designed by these people, and normal people wouldn't be able to solve them. At night, Linny sat on the ground practicing, while Lingshan and Yutian fell asleep. They needed to recover their stamina and spirit to their peak for tomorrow's operation. The next morning, Lingshan and Yutian woke up early. They were both practitioners, and while they weren't as good as Linny at staying awake, they could still recover their stamina in a short amount of time. You're awake? Eat something, we'll go to Old Hay's place. Linny heard people walking around outside the tent. The other tomb robbers must have woken up as well, but whether or not they were resting wasn't something Linny cared about. You didn't sleep the whole night? Lingshan asked. Yeah, don't ask useless things like that. Let's eat and leave. Linny said impatiently. Lingshan didn't dare say anything else. She and Yutian took a few bites of bread before the three left the tent. As expected, Xiaoka, Kungbro, and James were all in Old Hay's tent. Only Old Hao wasn't there yet. Old people weren't as energetic as young people. Two thieves, you're up so early as well? Old Hay greeted Linny and Lingshan with a smile. Ever since he heard what Linny said in the tent yesterday, Old Hay's attitude towards Linny had grown even more respectful. Humph. Linny humphed coldly. You're the one who put the bug in. Haha, my men don't know any better. Don't take offense. Old Hay laughed. Only a couple like this would be able to expose something like this to their face. If it were someone else, they'd be too embarrassed to bring it up. But now that it was out in the open, everything was a lot easier. There was no need to hide it anymore. Now, you don't think 20% is much, right? Linny asked. Naturally. If you can help out in a critical moment, I'm willing to give you that 20%. Old Hay said. Good that you know. With that, Linny found a spot and sat down, closing his eyes to rest. Lingshan sat beside him as well, and Yutian stood behind Linny and Lingshan like a door god. Xiaoka didn't say anything, just sitting beside Old Hay's tent and drinking the porridge. Old Hay was treating her, so she'd be wasting it. One can cost 10,000. Xiaoka's heart ached as she drank. Wouldn't it be better if she had 10,000? She could buy a cart full of porridge and feed the kids in the orphanage for so long. Chapter 1332. You can have it. And so Xiaoka complained as she ate. This porridge seller was really scamming her. She'd see if she could steal some money from them after the tomb raid. Haha, it was decided. As the saying goes, even thieves have their own rules. In the Steel sect, they also rely on their own abilities to survive. It's okay to do evil, but it must be done skillfully. If they openly rob with weapons, then it's not what the Steel sect does, it's what the underworld does. However, with the development of the Steel sect, some people began to break the rules, especially some newcomers who became impetuous and greedy. However, they didn't dare to be too brazen because of the deterrence of the big bosses of the Steel sect. They just played some tricks in the dark. The competition on the surface was still based on skills. Whoever was more skillful would get more. Of course, the thief gangs in the city didn't belong to the thief sects anymore, and they didn't care about the rules. That was why Xiaoka got ganged up on that day. Do you want some porridge? Old Hay took out 2 cans and tossed it to Lin Yi. Don't worry, I'm not stupid enough to poison it. Don't be scared with Old Hao here. Plus, I can't ignore what you said yesterday, whether it's true or not. I'm not hungry. Lin Yi took it and put it on the table in front of Xiaoka. You can have it. Xiaoka didn't reject it and accepted it. She wouldn't even be willing to drink a few kuai a can of 8 treasure porridge, let alone a 10,000 kuai 1 can. Now that Big Head was paying, she wouldn't hold back. Old Hay shrugged and didn't say anything else. The couple's personalities were a little out of place, and these people were used to it already. After a while, Old Hao came to Old Hay's tent with a few of his underlings. He didn't look embarrassed when he saw everyone there. Old Hay, can we start now? And I'll go check out the tomb today. Everyone pack up, we're going to rob the tomb. Old Hay nodded. This time the profits belong to everyone. And I hope that you guys don't hide yourself, use whatever skills you have, or no one will get anything good. Of course, it's not the first time we've worked together. Kung Bro nodded in agreement. Although I'm not as experienced as you guys, my technological equipment is top-notch. James said. I'll definitely do my best if I'm needed. Humph, as long as my 20% is not a small amount, there is naturally no problem, Lenny said coldly. All right. Old How is here too, so it's settled then. Old Black was obviously a very careful person. He confirmed these things again and again, afraid that there would be any problems. In half an hour we'll be here, and then we'll go explore the tomb together. Everyone nodded and went back to prepare, but Lenny, Lingshan, and Yuqian didn't go back, sitting there quietly as if they didn't hear what Old Hay said. Male thief, aren't you going to prepare? Old Black asked. No need, Lenny said calmly. We're just exploring the tomb. What's the point of bringing so many things? Do you want to die? Old Hay shrugged and stopped talking to Lenny. Talking to this guy was just asking for trouble. The guy's personality was too weird. No wonder he wore a mask all the time. With that temper, he must have a lot of enemies. If people knew what he looked like, he'd die sooner or later. Xiaoke didn't leave too. She was getting more and more familiar with this male thief. It was a woman's intuition, or rather, a thief's intuition. She kept feeling like she'd seen Lenny somewhere before. Old Hay went to pack up, and Xiaoke couldn't help but raise her head and look at Lenny curiously. What are you looking at? Do you want to die? Lenny knew that Xiaoke had suspicions. Lenny had purposely changed his voice, but Xiaoke might still be able to see through it. It was an intuition. Xiaoke stuck her tongue out, but didn't continue asking after seeing Lin Yi's fierce face. Half an hour later, everyone came back with their tools. With Old Hay at the front and the others at the back, they headed towards the tomb. The tomb was at the bottom of a cliff in the mountain range. This kind of cliff, if one didn't know that there was an ancient tomb down there, they wouldn't go down. It was all rocks here, and there was no grass or animals. No one would be dumb enough to go play at the bottom of the cliff. At the edge of the cliff, Old Hay's men started assembling the crane they brought, and in the blink of an eye, a small crane was assembled. My men will stay up there. But for the sake of fairness, your men can stay up there willingly, Old Hay said. The reason for this was because he didn't want Old Hay to come up and leave the others at the bottom, suffocating them to death. Kung Bro, James, and Old How all had people stay up there. But Lenny said faintly, I only have 3 people, so there's no need. You'll be the last to go up. That's not a problem. Old Hay paused and nodded. He had the most people up there, so it was fair for him to be the last to go up. Of course, he didn't know that Lenny was only saying that to confuse him. With the height of the cliff, even a golden class wouldn't have a problem jumping down, much less a mystic. When Old Lin kicked Lenny off the cliff, he didn't fall to his death. There was no way he'd die now. The crane first sent Old Hay, Old How, James, Kung Bro, and Lenny down, and then the rest of the men went down one by one. The entrance to the tomb was on the cliff, but this wasn't the real entrance. It was just a robber's hole, and the real entrance was obviously undiscovered. Old Hay, Kung Bro, James, Old How, Xiaoke, and Lenny entered the robber's cave. It was a stone room that wasn't too big or too small, and they didn't know what it was used for. There was a door in front of it, but it had already been destroyed by someone. Old Hay bent down and carefully checked the small details on the door. Then he nodded. Looks like everyone is trustworthy and didn't come without permission. Of course. Kung Bro and James nodded. In this line of work, we need to be trustworthy. Chapter 1333. One person was missing. Old Hay smiled awkwardly and didn't reply. He waited for all his subordinates to arrive before walking into the tomb. Outside the room was a long corridor that connected the left and right sides. Old Hay took the left path. Lenny didn't know much about the situation in the tomb, and the couple's work log didn't mention much about it. Buojia, on the other hand, had given some guesses about the traps in the tomb, But he'd neglected the simple safety zones when they first entered the tomb. As a result, Linny didn't say much as he followed Old Hay and the others into the dark tomb. Old Hay had a searchlight, but the tomb didn't have any sunlight at all, and it still looked eerie and scary. It was fine at first, but after walking for a few dozen meters, waves of cold air hit them in the face. There was an indescribable moldy and rotten smell that made their hair stand on end. Fortunately, the ground of the tomb was relatively flat and there were no obstacles. This allowed these people to walk at a very fast pace. After walking for a long time, there was a faint click sound. Then everything turned dark. All of them were expert grave robbers. Naturally, they did not believe in demons or ghosts. However, the sudden darkness caused them to stop in their tracks. Damn! The searchlight ran out of battery? Did it just charge yesterday? Old Hay cursed at the front of the team. Who charged it yesterday? Brother Hay. I just checked it and tested the remaining battery. There's no problem. A big man said carefully. What the hell? Who has a torchlight? Give me one. Hagu shook his head. The probability of the searchlight suddenly breaking down was less than 1%. He did not expect that this would be such a bad start. However, it was too late to go back and get a new searchlight. Moreover, they had only brought one searchlight this time. This thing was huge and it was connected to a large battery. It was quite inconvenient to carry around, so they only brought one when they entered the tomb. Someone handed Old Hay a torchlight. However, the light from the torchlight was especially weak in the dark tomb. The searchlight couldn't even reach the end, let alone the light from the torchlight. However, it was better than nothing. Although he couldn't see it clearly, he could make do with it. Those at the back hold each other's hands. Don't fall behind. Old Hay shouted to the people behind him before turning to another man, Mr. Chiu. Please cover the back and scatter some lime powder along the way. Don't get lost. Yes, Black Bro. Mr. Chiu nodded and ran to the back of the group. Linny looked at this Mr. Chiu. He was a golden class early phase peak. Who would have thought that Old Hay would have someone like that by his side? After giving the order, Blackie continued walking with the flashlight. After walking for a few hundred meters, he still couldn't see the end. Linny frowned, but seeing that no one said anything, he didn't say anything either. After another few hundred meters, Old Hay suddenly stopped in his tracks, and the whole team came to a halt. No, we're going the wrong way. Lao Hay suddenly exclaimed and turned around. A trace of uneasiness flashed across his eyes. Something's wrong. Last time we only walked for about 10 minutes to reach the entrance of the underground palace. This time we walked for about half an hour. There's still a path ahead. No way. How could this be? James exclaimed. How did you lead the way? Fuck, I knew something wasn't right. Why are we taking so long? My legs are going to go numb. Kung Bro also complained. Stop arguing, Old Hay, what's going on? Old Hao spoke up, interrupting them. He was the only one who hadn't been to the tomb before, so naturally he didn't feel anything wrong. Old Hao, I think we're going the wrong way. This path seems endless. We need to go back. Old Hay said. What us? You're the one who went the wrong way. Kung Bro complained. Alright, now's not the time to push the blame away. Old Hay didn't mean it. Let's go back and talk. Old Hao was an experienced man after all. He wasn't too nervous right now. That's the only way. Mr. Chiu, lead the way back along the limestone line. We're going back. Old Hay said to Mr. Chiu. But no one answered. Mr. Chiu? Did you hear me? Old Hay called again. Still no answer. Mr. Chiu? Old Hay's face finally changed as he called again. Ah! Just then, a scream came from the back of the team. Old Hay subconsciously ran to the back of the group. The others also turned their gazes to the back of the group. At the back of the group, one of the subordinates was holding a broken arm, screaming in horror. There was also a bloody shirt on the severed arm. It was Mr. Chiu's. Mr. Chiu. Old Hay looked at the severed arm in shock, speechless. After a while he roared, Where's Mr. Chiu? Why is there only half an arm left? I don't know. The man holding the arm was pale as well. You called for Mr. Chiu before, and I didn't hear a reply, so I turned around to look, but I didn't see anything and I didn't touch anything. All I have left is half an arm. The team was already a little restless because they'd gone the wrong way. And now that something like this had happened, it was even more shocking. Old Hay's face was very unsightly. If he didn't know how strong Mr. Cho was, he would have suspected that it was this man's doing. But Mr. Cho was a golden class early phase peak. What kind of master was he to be able to kill him without making a sound? Who did it? Who did it? Old Hay was a little agitated. Mr. Cho was his biggest support, and now he'd been killed without a sound. Plus, was there anyone in the team who could do this? Chapter 1334. One could see how strong the enemy was. Could it be an Earth class? There was an Earth class hiding here and he didn't notice? Lin Yi's eyes scanned through everyone present, but he found nothing. There were a few masters in the team, but the strongest one was only a golden class late phase peak, not even a mystic. However, the strongest expert that these grave robbers could hire was only a golden rank. After all, even a mystic rank would not risk their life for them. This profession of grave robbing was too dangerous, and there was the risk of dying at any time. It was better to be a bodyguard for a rich family. Plus, a lot of mystic class masters were recruited by the noble houses, and there weren't many of them among the commoners, let alone an Earth class. However, at this moment a person was really dead and he didn't even know how he died. There was another possibility, which was that the killer wasn't in the team. He wasn't a member of the team, but someone hiding in the dark. After killing someone, he went into hiding. Of course, the other possibility was that there was an Earth class physical practitioner in the group, and when he didn't show his strength, Lin Yi's golden finger wouldn't work on him. But one had to know how hard it was to become a physical Earth class. Even a noble house like Chuntian didn't have a physical Earth class. Mr. Cho's death made everyone's faces change, especially old Hao. He looked at Kung Bro, James, Lin Yi, and Lingshan sharply. Which one of you did it? What's in it for you? We're all lost, we can't go back. You're just hurting yourself and others, aren't you? Old Hao, that's not right, why did we kill him? Kung Bro wasn't happy. Couldn't it have been that Cho guy who killed himself? Why don't you ask Old Black? Maybe he did this on purpose to frame us and take all the benefits in the tomb for himself. Bullshit. Even if I wanted to kill myself, I wouldn't let Mr. Cho do it. Old Hay was about to explode it. His master had died for no reason, and he was being suspected as well. Mr. Cho is a golden class early phase peak master that I hired with a high price. How could I let him die like that? I have so many minions, but I want the experts to die. Am I crazy? He's already dead. Even if you say he's at the profound stage, we can't verify it. Kung Bro said coldly. Alright, let's talk about what we should do first. Old Hao waved his hand and said helplessly, Old Hay, this path isn't right. Something's wrong. It took us 10 minutes to walk 500 or 600 meters to reach the entrance, but it's been half an hour now, and we're still not there. It's still dark, we must have gone the wrong way. Old Hay shook his head. I was afraid that we'd gone the wrong way. That's why I asked Mr. Cho to cover us, but who knows what you're thinking? Did you deliberately go the wrong way? Brother Kung had a bad temper. He was full of anger, so he took it out on Brother Hay. Fuck you. Say another word, Old Kung, and I'll shoot you. Old Hay was furious and sullen, pulling out his gun and pointing it at Kung Bro. Heh, shoot if you dare. Kung Bro scolded, knowing that Old Hao was here and that Old Hay didn't dare do anything rash. Old Hay, don't you dare. Old Hao yelled as well. Bang! A gunshot rang out and Old Hay really did shoot. If Old Hao hadn't said that, Old Hay wouldn't have acted so rashly. But Old Hao's do you dare made Old Hay's heart pound. Why wouldn't I dare? Fuck, I don't even know how my expert died. I'm already pissed off enough, and you're still saying that I'm acting? So what if I kill you with one shot? Old Hay was on the verge of breaking down. Kung Bro didn't even have time to scream before Old Hay shot him dead. Everyone was dumbfounded, looking at Old Hay in horror. James and his men pulled out their guns and pointed at Old Hay. He didn't want to become the second Kung Bro. Old Hay, what are you doing? Why did you kill him? Old Hao yelled. Lin Yi looked at him coolly. He didn't know if the guy was really stupid, or if he was just faking it. Or was he just using his seniority? He'd provoked Old Hay so much, it would be weird if he didn't shoot. Old Hao, you saw it too, he wanted to die. He said if I didn't shoot, then I'd be stupid, so I had to shoot. Old Hay humphed coldly and turned to James. Don't make a fuss or we'll all die together. At this time Old Hay's men all raised their guns, aiming at Kung Bro and James' men. All right. Even if Old Kang's words are bad, there's no need to kill him. I'm here, aren't I? Old How said helplessly. Right now the most important thing is to run for our lives, not fight amongst ourselves. Old Kang's men, if you want to follow us, then follow us. If you want to get revenge for Old Kang, then fight Old Hay. I won't interfere. Once we're done, we'll go back. Old Kang's underlings, except for the two confidants, would no longer work for him when they saw that Old Kang was dead. Thinking of this, everyone put down their guns. The two confidants suddenly attacked, but they were shot dead by Old Hay's underlings. It was obvious that Old Hay had the advantage in numbers. Getting revenge for Old Kang wasn't a smart choice. All right, let's go back. Old How said faintly, not saying anything else. The group of people still held hands and slowly walked back the way they came. This time, they didn't dare to walk as fast as when they came. They just took small steps, but they didn't go far. These people had to stop. In front of them was a fork in the road. No one remembered which fork they came from, and there were no traces of lime on the ground. Mr. Cho was obviously dead by now. What do we do? The people in front stopped and turned to ask. James opened his mouth, wanting to blame Old Hay. He was the one leading the way, and that was why everyone got lost. But then he remembered how Old Hay had shot Old Kang, and he shut his mouth. He was the only foreigner here, and if a fight broke out, he'd be at a disadvantage. Chapter 1335. Xiaoka frowned. There was no difference between the two passageways, and they looked the same from the outside. She really couldn't tell the difference. I can't tell either. There aren't any signs or symbols here, and there aren't any traps either. It's just two passageways. I can't tell. Xiaoka said straightforwardly. She didn't want them to get lost because of her judgment. Old Hay, what do you think? Old How looked at Old Hay, a little disappointed. I don't know either. Blackie shook his head. This tomb was very strange. There were no signs at all, and he couldn't find any clues. He didn't know how the builders used it, but they probably brought a map with them every time they came. Then we'll go left. This time we'll all sprinkle some lime powder on the ground and walk forward. I'll cover the back. There shouldn't be a problem. Old How said after a sigh. All right, I agree. Old Hay thought about it. It was a good idea, and with Old How covering the back, there wouldn't be any problems. I agree. James nodded. At this time he had no choice but to agree. If he didn't agree, would he have to go to the right? Wouldn't that be more dangerous? All right, it's decided then. Old How nodded. You guys go left, I'll go right. Lin Yi said faintly. As they got closer to the left, the jade on Lin Yi's chest started alerting him. Evidently, there wasn't anything good here, and so Lin Yi chose the right. What? You guys aren't going with the rest? Old How's face darkened at Lin Yi's disagreement. He was the one who suggested going left. I want to go right. Is there a problem? Lin Yi humphed coldly. Up to you. Let's go. Old How said to the others with a cold smile, pissed at Lin Yi's insensitivity. Old Hay frowned, suddenly remembering what he'd overheard yesterday. Lin Yi's words. Could it be that Lin Yi had full confidence? Otherwise, why wouldn't he go left with the rest? With that thought, Old Hay hesitated. Old How, let's go right. What? You trust him? Old How's face turned even uglier. I agree with the right. Xiaoka spoke up as well. She didn't know why, but she didn't like this Old How at all, so she decided to support the couple. At that moment, Lin Yi was already walking to the right, with Ling Shan and Chan Yutian following close behind. Old Hay hesitated, but brought his men with him. Lin Yi's confidence only increased after seeing how confident Lin Yi was. Xiaoka walked in as well, and James hesitated for a bit before following them in. Anger flashed in Old How's eyes. He was the one with the most authority in the group, but now no one listened to him. Even Old Hay, who'd invited him, listened to the couple. It pissed him off. But now that everyone was gone, he couldn't go to the left alone. He coughed and followed helplessly with his men. The right path wasn't long, and after a while they came to another fork. Left and right again. This time everyone was dumbfounded. Why were there two more paths? Previously, because it was behind him and the cave was pitch black, he didn't notice it. Now that he noticed it, it was already too late. How do we go? Old Hay looked at Linny, hesitating. He didn't know if Linny was confident or not. Let me take a look. Linny stood near the two paths, sensing the danger within. But what Linny found strange was that the jade didn't warn them. Were they both safe? Linny frowned. He couldn't make up his mind. Why aren't you going? Old House spoke up. You're not leaving, are you? I told you to go left before, but you guys didn't listen, insisting on going right with him. Old Blackie was a bit shaken by Old House's words. Are you sure about this, male thief? I didn't ask you to come. You came on your own. Linny said faintly, not giving Old Hay any hints. You can go back if you don't want to. Let's go, follow me back. We'll go left. Old House said. Old Hay and James looked at each other. They could see the hesitation in each other's eyes. Linny looked at Old Howe but continued walking to the right path. Since there was no danger, he'd just take one. There was a saying that all roads lead to Rome. They might be able to get out of here. Ling Shan and Yutian, on the other hand, trusted Linny 100%. Especially Yutian. He was someone who'd survived the jungle with Linny, and Linny was a very strong instructor. He could easily avoid the enemy's traps in the jungle, and he had sharp senses and senses. Yutian didn't suspect Linny at all. Old Hay saw that Linny was leaving, and after some hesitation he followed. As far as he could see, the couple were arrogant people, but they were very careful. These two treasured their lives, and wouldn't do something that would kill them. Old Hay followed, and so did Xiaoka. James hesitated but followed as well. Old Howe, on the other hand, had a displeased look on his face. After another 100 meters or so, Linny stopped abruptly. Male thief, what's wrong now? Old Hay paused. There wasn't a fork in the road. Why did Linny stop? Look behind you. Linny turned around and said faintly. Linny was more attentive this time, and noticed that there was a slight dip in the hallway when he was walking. If he wasn't mistaken, this should be the intersection of the two caves. Sure enough, there were two passageways behind them. They were exactly the same as the passageways they had seen before, and these people had come out from the right passageway. Ah, there's another tunnel. Old Hay said, shocked. If I'm not wrong, we'd come out from here if we went from the left. These two tunnels are connected. With that, Linny didn't stop. Chapter 1336. After a while there were 3 forks in the road. All 3 entrances were exactly the same. People without a map would have been lost by now. Linny stood at the entrance of the 3 forks, testing it out before going to the right. The other 2 jade pendants reacted, especially the one in the middle. Naturally, Linny went back to the one on the right. The people behind him continued to follow, and even Old Howe didn't say anything this time. After another few 100 meters, Linny stopped again. There was still no exit in front of him. Old Hay, on the other hand, subconsciously looked back as well, but there wasn't any passageway. He didn't know what Linny was doing. Your man died here. Linny said faintly. Ah. Old Hay was stunned. He quickly shone the flashlight on the ground. With the weak light, there was indeed a pool of blood not far from the cave floor. However, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. So that means this is the right way? We didn't go the wrong way? James said happily. Old Howe's face darkened, but he said, all roads lead to Rome. We might be able to get here from the left as well. But at this time no one would argue with him. At this time everyone saw the joy of success. Everyone finally walked out. But where's Mr. Chio's body? Old Hay looked around curiously, but didn't find a body. I don't know. Linny said. I have no obligation to find a body for you if you want to look. Then stay and look. No. I'll go with you. Old Hay trusted Linny completely now. Thank God he heard what Linny said yesterday. That made him trust Linny so much. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to go back alive today. This time there were traces of lime on the ground, evidently from Mr. Chio. But he didn't see Mr. Chio's body along the way, which confirmed Linny's guess. There was a master in this tomb. Of course, Mr. Chiu was too far from Lin Yi, and with so many people holding hands, the line was very long. So Lin Yi didn't sense the master's aura. But if this person had gotten close, Lin Yi would have been able to sense it. This is the place. After a while, Lin Yi stopped and turned. We went the wrong way here. Everyone turned their heads after hearing Lin Yi's words. As expected, there was another cave behind them. Evidently, they had entered the wrong cave. That's right, I remember now, there was a rock blocking this entrance, and now that it's gone, I went the wrong way. I was looking for it, but I didn't know it was taken away. Old Hay slapped his forehead in realization. Who took it away? Lin Yi frowned. It seemed like he'd been dragged into a trap without realizing it. And the person behind this trap had an earth class helping them. He'd thought that having a mystic class among the tomb robbers would be the best, but Lin Yi wasn't expecting this. But Lin Yi didn't regret coming to this tomb. Even if he knew that there was an earth class here, Lin Yi still had to come. There were things that a man should do and shouldn't do. Lin Yi had to come for Xiao Xiao, no matter how dangerous or difficult it was. Even if the enemy was an earth class. If you want to stop me, I'll blow you up with an energy bomb. After blowing you up, I might live, but even if you don't die, you'll be crippled. So the appearance of an earth class gave Lin Yi some pressure, but it didn't stop Lin Yi's determination to continue exploring the tomb. Someone's been in the tomb. James also remembered the stones here and exclaimed, someone came to this ancient tomb before us. But some of the small marks that I have placed at the entrance of the old tomb have not been destroyed. Old Hay knit his brows and doubtfully said, although one can enter the old tomb without destroying those small marks if one's qigong reaches a certain level, the crux of the matter is that other than me, no one else knows what those small marks are. Lin Yi snorted at Old Hay's words. Even Lin Yi could enter the tomb without breaking the markings, let alone an earth class. He was underestimating mystic class and above. Only the few of us know about this tomb. Who came in first? James frowned as well. The two looked at each other, and suddenly shifted their gaze to Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't know how to react to the two suspecting him. He didn't know if the real couple had been here before, but he was the fake one. This was the only reason why he'd been impersonating them. If I was the one who did this, why would I bring you guys out? Are you retarded? Lin Yi smiled coldly. The two were used to Lin Yi's way of talking, but Lin Yi was right. If it was him, he wouldn't have to bring them out. But could it really be the dead old Kung? Now that he was dead, there was no proof. That's true. It's all thanks to the male thief this time. I think it's that bastard old Kang's doing. Old Hay humphed. I'm going to the underground palace. Are you guys going back or following? Lin Yi didn't have time to waste with them. Lin Yi was here for the fire spirit's fruit. Nothing else mattered to Lin Yi. I think we should go back first, discuss and come up with a plan. Old Howe suggested. Today's been such a bad day, and 2 people died, one of whom we don't even know how he died. If we don't get to the bottom of this, it'll be weird. Oh, then you guys go back. Lin Yi said faintly. To Lin Yi, the biggest enemy in this tomb was the earth class. Everyone else was nothing to Lin Yi. Male thief, I think Old Howe's right. Old Hay said after a sigh. Without Mr. Chiu's protection, Old Hay was at a disadvantage. Evidently, he wanted to go back and find some more masters to protect him. Chapter 1337. Lin Yi didn't care if these people were following him or not, but Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi and gave him a meaningful look. Lin Yi remembered immediately that this trip to the tomb was Ling Shan and Yu Qian's mission. Their main mission was to capture these tomb robbers, and exploring the tomb was just a side mission, so these people's whereabouts were very important. Ling Shan didn't want to explore the tomb alone. She wanted to keep an eye on the robbers at all times, and if anything happened, she'd be able to call for reinforcements to surround the place. She was afraid that these people would think that the tomb was too dangerous and give up on this mission. If that were the case, it'd be a lot harder to capture them once they left, so Ling Shan suggested going back first. Lin Yi sighed. He was worried, but Xiao Xiao was already frozen in the coffin, so there shouldn't be any problems anytime soon. It didn't matter if they went back a day or a day later, since the tomb wasn't going to run away. Even if the robbers gave up, Lin Yi could still explore the tomb himself. Alright, let's go back then. We'll decide after we discuss. Linny nodded. Old How breathed out in relief, his smile widening. We should all work together, right? What if something goes wrong? The people going back were the same as when they came, riding the rope crane. Only 2 people were missing, Old Kong and Mr. Chiu. Mr. Chiu was easy to deal with, but Old Kong still had a few henchmen up there. He didn't know what Old Hay was going to do with them, or perhaps Old Hay had already informed his men to get rid of them. After the group went up, they didn't see any of Old Kang's men, only a few who had surrendered to Old Hay. That was how it was. When the tree falls, the monkey scattered, Old Kong was dead, and his men would only be killed if they fought to the end. However, Linny did not care about these things. Old Hay was just a tragic pawn. Although it seemed that he had taken advantage of Old Kong and absorbed his men, Linny felt that he was being used. An invisible net had enveloped everyone, and an invisible ghostly hand was pushing everyone in the direction he had predicted. Linny looked at them coldly, not saying anything as he walked back to the tent with Lingshan and Yutian. He turned around after 2 steps, looking at Xiaoka. Be careful, it's too dangerous here. With your skills you better go back. Xiaoka paused and wanted to say something, but Linny had already left. This scene didn't attract much attention. The thief couple had a mean personality, and they were always direct with everyone they talked to. Old Hay thought that Linny was mocking Xiaoka's uselessness, indirectly conveying his dissatisfaction to Old Hay. Could it be that the couple wasn't happy with the distribution? It was no wonder, after all, that Old Kong had died today, and the 15% he had was empty. Could it be that the couple was drooling over the 15%? With that thought, Old Hay's face darkened. He knew that it would be impossible to explore the tomb without Lin Yi's help. These people had almost gotten lost in there. If he didn't give Linny more, Linny might just leave and come back later to rob the tomb himself. Old Hay would have nothing to do then. With the couple's personality, there was no way they'd do something as unreasonable as this. Old Hay hesitated, but decided to give Lin Yi a portion of the profits if he was the one who brought it up. After all, Lin Yi was a very important person. Everyone rest for a bit, and then come to my tent later. We'll discuss our next plan. Old Hay said to the people present. Please give us some suggestions, Master Hao. Humph? Some people don't even care about an old man like me anymore. Old Hao humphed coldly as he watched Lin Yi leave. Old Hay, don't bring people who don't follow orders with us anymore. Old Hao, that's how the couple is, but they're really skilled. We can't leave them out for this tomb raid. Old Black said, a little troubled. He wasn't too happy with Old Hao, and he shouldn't have told the old man. He was just taking advantage of his seniority, and it was useless, but he was causing so much trouble. But it was easier to invite a god in than to send him away. Since this Old Hao was here, they couldn't just let him go. Old Hay could only explain, troubled. It's just luck, it's no big deal. Old Hao humphed. Lin Yi, Lingshan, and Yutian went back to the tent, and the first thing Yutian did was check the listening device. Lin Yi waved his hand. Don't waste your energy. Old Hay wouldn't be stupid enough to do something like that again. He doesn't dare piss us off right now. Plus, there was one more thing Lin Yi didn't say. Lin Yi's jade didn't send out any alarms. This meant that the tent was safe, and there was nothing wrong. That's right, Old Hay, and the others still need you to explore the tomb. But Lin Yi, how did you know which path led out? Yutian nodded, surprised at what Lin Yi had done today. Although he knew it before. Lin Yi's detection abilities were strong, but there were no clues in this tomb at all, and Lin Yi just walked out without any mistakes. Intuition, do you believe me? Lin Yi smiled. He didn't know how to explain his jade pendant, so he shrugged and said, that's right. Yutian paused, nodding. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? Huh. Lin Yi smiled. Alright, let's not talk about that, let's talk about the tomb. You two need to prepare yourself, there's probably a master in this tomb raiding group. Master? You mean the one who killed Mr. Chiu? Lingshan and Yutian weren't stupids, they understood immediately. That Mr. Chiu, is he really a golden class early phase peak? Chapter 1338. Of course, there was one more thing he didn't say other than poison and assassination. The person who attacked Mr. Chiu had done it in the most violent way possible. He'd killed Mr. Cho outright, not poisoned or assassinated. Because to kill Mr. Cho without the person in front noticing, neither assassination nor poison were possible. Either way, Mr. Cho's body would freeze momentarily, and the person in front would notice something was wrong. They would turn around to check, and that would be a failure of his plan to kill Mr. Cho without anyone noticing. So if he didn't want the person in front to notice, he'd have to cut off Mr. Cho's hand and kill him at the same time. He'd have to kill Mr. Cho before he could even react to the pain. Of course, this wouldn't count as an assassination but a clear kill. Linny didn't have the confidence to do this. But this unknown enemy had done it. Plus, Linny didn't even sense this person's presence, of course. The jade didn't warn him either. This meant that when this person killed Mr. Cho, his target was only Mr. Cho, and he didn't have any ill intentions towards him, Lingshan, Yuqian, or even Xiaoka. The jade's warning function was very interesting, and sometimes even Linny didn't understand it. It was as if it could see into his heart. It only worked on friends and not enemies, and it didn't work on other people that Linny treated as strangers or friends that were out of range. This was similar to the party system in some online games, which only worked on the same team members on the same map. Earth class. Lingshan and Yuqian were quite shocked by Lin Yi's words. They looked at each other, their mouths wide open. Isn't that a master from the legendary hidden houses and sects? Both of them were from noble houses, and they naturally knew what an Earth class represented. Even a mystic late-phase peak was a rare sight. I don't know about that, the world is full of strange things. From what you see, maybe Earth classes only exist in the hidden houses and sects, that's what you see on the surface. But maybe in the common world, some dark forces have masters like that in their hands, like the tomb raiding groups this time. Linny said. Yeah. Lingshan realized. My thinking was limited, but I was limited to the obvious, and I forgot about these criminal organizations. If this Earth rank master really exists, then I don't recommend going against him. I don't have the confidence to do anything to him. It'll be even more difficult for your men to capture him. If he wants to protect someone and escape, no one can stop him. Linny reminded them indifferently, so you should change your plans. Don't do it if you know it's impossible. Actually, if Linny really wanted to fight this Earth class to the death, he might not lose. But Linny had big business in the tomb, and as long as the Earth class didn't stop Linny from finding the fruit, he could do whatever he wanted. Linny didn't care. As for whether Lingshan and Yuqian could complete the mission, Linny didn't really care. It wasn't that Linny didn't care, but the situation was special, and Linny had to prioritize Xiao Xiao. Everything else was secondary. Lingshan and Yuqian smiled bitterly, silent. Of course, they knew how strong an Earth class was. Mystic class was already very strong in the common world, let alone an Earth class. If even Linny said he didn't have the confidence, then he really didn't have the confidence. They didn't know which tomb robber had the ability to get an Earth class to help them. We can only play it by ear. Lingshan sighed. I couldn't stop old He in time when he tried to kill someone today. I really didn't know what to do. Lingshan, naturally, didn't want the suspect to die in the middle of an internal strife. If he died, it'd be hard for him to get his loot back. One dead means one less. I'll only be able to confirm which side that Earth class is on if more of them die. Linny said nonchalantly. Lingshan and Yuqian were silent, thinking about it for a while before changing their plans. Linny, on the other hand, called House Chu's villa. After a while, Gooden's voice came from the other side. Hello? How are you? Gooden, it's me. How's your family? Linny didn't expect Gooden to become so polite after being here for a while. He even knew how to say you. Boss, it's you. Gooden was excited when he heard Linny's voice. Everything's fine at home. I sent the 3 sisters-in-law to school this morning, and I'll pick them up at night. Don't worry, boss, I won't let anyone touch a single hair on them. I'll kill anyone who dares. Alright, Linny smiled. Right, how's General Weiwu? Go to the police station later, and give General Weiwu to an officer called Lu Wangli. I'll talk to him. General Weiwu? Alright. Gooden nodded. Alright, I'll send it over in a bit. What happened in the tomb today made Linny think of General Weiwu. If General Weiwu was here, then he'd have less trouble and more confidence. After all, dogs had a sharp sense of smell, and this was also a backup plan that Linny had. It would be great if he couldn't fight against that Earth rank master, but if he did, he would play with an energy bomb and kill him. Then, he would have General Weiwu as his golden finger to repair his damaged meridians and regain his strength. Linny was afraid that without General Weiwu by his side, he'd die in the tomb. After the call with Gooden, Linny told Lingshan to call Lu Wangli and arrange for him to send the dog over, while Linny drove out himself. In the Xiao family's villa, Xiaoji called Xiao Ben from the company in a hurry. In the Xiao family, Xiao Ben was the one who took care of the business, and Xiao Ji, on the other hand, was happy to be the head of the house. He didn't care about anything, just having the title of head of the house. But for Xiao Ji, this was the best way. Big brother, why did you call me back so urgently? What happened? Xiao Ben hurried home and asked as soon as he entered the door. Chapter 1339. Oh, Linny went out? Who told you that? Is it reliable? Xiao Ben's eyes lit up. Absolutely. I saw Linny leave the villa yesterday with my own eyes, and I was worried today, so I sent Xiao Wangdao and Xiao Wangba to Lin Yi's school to ask around. Linny really didn't go to school. Xiaoji said. How about this, let's confirm it again. If Linny really isn't there, then we'll make our move. Xiao Ben sighed. He didn't want to miss this opportunity after all. He'd been wanting to make a move on Pengzhan for a long time now. Actually, brother, the two masters from House Pai have already healed. With their strength, even if Lin Yi was there, it wouldn't be a problem. We'll let them cripple Lin Yi. Xiaoji said. With the two masters from House Pai, as long as it's not that hero, crippling Lin Yi and Li Fu would be a piece of cake. That's true, but that's only if the two masters from House Pai help. If they don't help, then everything would be for naught. Xiao Ben said. If they're willing to help, then we don't even need to talk to Pengzhan anymore. We'll just let them cripple Lin Yi and Li Fu, capture Meng Yao, and ask Pengzhan for money. Let's see if he'll give it to us. Brother, I think we should talk to them and tell them our intentions. Most of the profits we get will belong to House Pai after all. As long as there's profit, they'll definitely help. Xiao Ji's thoughts were simple. There was money to be made, so why wouldn't they help? You don't say, brother, you're right. Even if we take down House Chu, most of the profits will still belong to House Pai. If they don't help, then who would? Xiao Ben slapped his thigh, feeling enlightened. Xiao Ben was always thinking in a complicated way, thinking that the two masters from House Pai wouldn't be controlled by the Xiao family, but he'd neglected an important point. What the Xiao family was doing right now was also benefiting House Pai. And so, Xiao Ben and Xiao Ji found two masters from House Pai and told them about their plan to deal with House Chu. Of course, Xiao Ben didn't forget to mention that doing this was also to earn money for House Pai. Pengzhan's business was huge, and it would be a huge deal if he were to just give some of it to Lin Yi. Of course not. Pai Yongyang nodded without hesitation. He was beaten up and sent to the hospital. If it wasn't for the fact that he was a mystic class master, his body's recovery speed was super strong, and he had House Pai's special healing medicine, he didn't know how many months he would have to stay in the hospital. However, he had nowhere to vent his anger. Now that the Chu family had a punching bag, he naturally wouldn't let them off. Mr. Pai nodded and said, let's take it as a warm-up exercise. That's great. Since the two experts don't have any objections, let's hurry up and make our move tonight. Xiao Ben said. Meng Yao will be out of school tonight, and Li Fu, the golden class early phase physical practitioner, will be there to pick them up. Lin Yi might appear as well, but it's not certain. Don't hold back when the time comes, just injure or cripple Li Fu and Lin Yi, preferably killing them. Then capture Meng Yao and the mission will be complete. Leave the rest to me. That's easy, no problem. Pai Yongyang nodded proudly. What level is Lin Yi at? A mystic mid-phase spiritual practitioner? Yes, a mystic mid-phase spiritual practitioner. Xiao Ben nodded. Naturally, he didn't know that Lin Yi was already a mystic mid-phase peak. A small mystic mid-phase, I can kill him with one slap. Pai Yongyang nodded. He was a typical bully. Tonight, the two of you along with Xiao Wangba and Xiao Wangdao go intercept Meng Yao's car. They know which car it is, let them point it out from afar. It's not good for us two brothers to appear there. Xiaobin said. All right, no problem. Pa Yongyang patted his chest and promised. Wang Dao and Wang Ba were very happy that they were given such a heavy responsibility. It was quite an honor to go on a mission with two mystic class masters. And so, Xiao Wangdao and Xiao Wangba immediately contacted Wu Chantian, who was closer to them. Wu bro, it's Wangba. Wangba dialed Qintian's number. Wu bro, are you free tonight? Nope, what's wrong? Chantian had nothing to do other than thinking about how to chase after Sun Jingyi. He hadn't been to his company many times, and it was purely for showing off. It's like this, Wu bro, don't you hate that Linny brat? Today, two of our Xiao family's house pie masters are planning to kidnap Meng Yao, and they might get into a fight with Li Fu and Lin Yi. My dad already told them to kill Lin Yi. Wu bro, are you interested in coming over? Wang Ba asked. Kill Lin Yi? Shintian paused. He hated Lin Yi, but he only wanted to mess with him and chase him away from Sun Jingyi. As for killing Lin Yi, that was something he never thought about. He might be arrogant and cocky, but he wasn't a sinister person. So when he heard that Xiao family wanted to kill Lin Yi, he was shocked. But this was Xiao family's business, and they had the support of the hidden house pie. Naturally, Chen Tian couldn't say anything about it. He hoped that Sun Jingyi wouldn't blame him when she found out. He was a golden class master. How could he fight a mystic late-phase peak of the hidden house pie? Even House Wu wasn't a match for them. Yeah, that Lin Yi is a mystic as well. This is a battle between masters, and it's a physical master fighting a spiritual master. Wu bro, aren't you a physical master too? Come and watch. I'm sure you'll learn something. Wang Ba said. Qintian didn't want to go at first. He was afraid that Sun Jingyi would ignore him even more after knowing the truth, but after hearing Wang Ba's words, he changed his mind. Yes, a battle between masters, especially a physical practitioner. It'd be very beneficial for him if he could observe it. Perhaps even a small movement would benefit him a lot, and so Qintian's heart started to itch again. Chapter 1340. Then it's settled. Wu bro, drive to Xiao family's villa later, we'll go together. Wang Ba said. Alright, I'll definitely go, Qintian nodded. The reason why Xiao family asked Qintian to come was to show House Wu the strength of Xiao family, to let them see how strong the hidden house pie's practitioners were. This way, through House Wu's mouth, they could let the other noble houses know that Xiao family wasn't to be messed with. How was it? Xiaobin quickly asked after Wang Ba hung up. He has agreed to watch the battle. Xiao Wangba nodded. That's good, this time we must make Xiao family famous. The noble house meeting is about to be held, and with House Pie's support, we'll definitely get a good position. Xiaobin said proudly. At night, Erguden sat in Faubert's Bentley and went to Songshan's first school. Erguden sat in the front passenger seat like a bodyguard, his eyes wide open, watching everything outside the window. This was a mission given to him by boss Lin Yi, and he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Faubert looked at Erguden's serious face, and he couldn't help but find it funny. Where did Lin Yi find this weirdo? Soon Meng Yao, Yushu and Tang Yun came out of the school. The three of them seemed to be in a bad mood, and they weren't used to suddenly having one less person. The three got in the car, and Meng Yao nodded to Erguden as a greeting. Faubert started the car, and it slowly drove to House Chu's villa. Originally it was a calm matter, but suddenly, a van without a license plate overtook and stopped in front of Uncle Fu's Bentley. Behind the Bentley, there was also an off-road vehicle blocking the way. The Bentley was pincered from the front and back, forcing it to be unable to move. Faubert stopped the car with a serious expression. The scene where he was stopped by Maju was still vivid in his mind. Not long after, a similar scene happened again. Miss Chu, please stay in the car. I'll go down to take a look, Faubert said sternly. Although Faubert knew that they didn't come with good intentions, he still had to stand in front of them. This wasn't about being a bodyguard anymore. All these years Faubert had treated Meng Yao like his own child. He wouldn't allow anyone to hurt her. However, before Faubert could get out of the car, the door of the van in front of him opened. Two people, one old and one young, wearing white training clothes, jumped out of the van. Not good, it's a master from House Pie. I'm afraid they don't have good intentions. Faubert frowned. Li Fu Linny, get out of the car and die. Pai Yongyang shouted arrogantly at the Bentley. Since the front and back of the Bentley were covered with a film, he couldn't see what was going on inside. Not far away, Xiao Wangba, Xiao Wangdao and Chen Tian were hiding in another MPV, quietly watching the situation unfold. As expected of a mystic late phase peak, they're so cool. Chen Tian said enviously as he looked at Pai Yongyang and Mr. Pai. When will I become like this? Chen Tian was a person who worshipped strength, but it wasn't strange. Every disciple of a noble house wanted to become stronger and stronger. Haha, don't worry, Wu bro. After this is done, I'll have Elder Pai teach you a thing or two. You'll understand it for sure, Wangba said. Oh, that's great. Thank you, Wangba bro, Chen Tian said happily. Chen Tian said happily. Although his grandpa was a mystic as well, he still had his limitations. If there was another mystic class physical practitioner to teach him, then Chen Tian might be able to benefit from it. You're welcome. Let's watch the show first. Wangba waved his hand. Pai Yongyang arrogantly walked to the front of the Bentley and slapped the hood of the Bentley. Instantly the hood caved in, and a complete palm print appeared on it. Get out of the car. Hurry up and get out, or else I'll smash your car. Pai Yongyang yelled. No way. This Elder Pai's hands are this strong? That's iron hands. Chen Tian said in admiration. I specialize in iron hands, but I can't make such a neat palm print. This won't do, I must consult him later. Of course, a mystic is different. Wang Dao couldn't help but feel proud of Chen Tian's admiring look. Before, it was always the Xiao family that admired the other noble houses, but now it was the other noble houses that admired the Xiao family. On the other side, Faubert was about to get out of the car when Gooden stopped him. These two old bastards dared to come looking for trouble. I should have killed them with one punch. Don't worry, I'll go down and kill them with one punch. Gooden remembered what Lin Yi told him, that he couldn't show mercy to his enemies. His body was a bit special, and if he gave his enemies a chance to retaliate, he'd be done for. Faubert heard Gooden's words and remembered that there was a strong person in the car. This was a practitioner that sent 2 wallet masters to the hospital. If that was the case, what did he have to be afraid of? He'd just wait for Gooden to kill them. Gooden jumped off the car, and without a word, he punched Yongyang's chest. Bang! With a loud sound, Yongyang, who was acting cool, was sent flying by Gooden, crashing into a telephone pole 10 meters away. Evidently, he wouldn't be able to survive after falling to the ground, the huge hole in his chest clearly visible. Gooden had punched him through with one punch. Mr. Pai was also in a good mood. He was ready to say a few words after Pai Yongyang was done. He wanted to relieve the depression he had in the hospital, but before he could say anything, he saw a person get out of the Bentley. Without saying a word, the person punched Pai Yongyang and sent him flying away. Mr. Pai was dumbfounded. What was going on? How did Yongyang get sent flying? Why was there such a strong practitioner in the Bentley? But when Mr. Pai's eyes landed on Gooden, he was scared out of his wits. Fuck, wasn't this the warrior who called himself Grandpa Gooden? Why was he in the car? Warrior, why are you here? Mr. Pai stuttered. Chapter 1341. In truth, it wasn't that Mr. Pai didn't want to fight, but that he didn't dare. As far as he was concerned, Gooden was a super strong being, and he was already traumatized when he was with the Xiao family, and just now, he killed Pai Yongyang with one punch. How could he fight someone like that? Therefore, apart from begging for mercy, the only thing he could do was to beg for mercy. There was nothing else he could say. Gooden kicked Mr. Pai to the ground. Speak, who sent you? Is it that old woman Go Huli? Gooden knew Go Huli from the Xiao family, and the first person he thought of was her as well. Speak or I'll stomp you to death. Mr. Pai was about to speak when he heard 2 cracking sounds, and pain shot up his legs. Gooden stomped down on Mr. Pai's legs, breaking them. This Mr. Pai wasn't as strong as Pai Yongyang, but he was more than enough to deal with Gooden. So, Gooden crippled him first, turning him into a cripple. This way he wouldn't be a threat anymore. Speak, who sent you? Mr. Pai was about to speak when he heard another cracking sound, and pain shot up his arms again. This time, before Mr. Pai could speak, Gooden stomped on his right arms again, breaking them as well. Mr. Pai's eyes rolled back in pain as he screamed, I'll speak, don't kill me. Okay, tell me. Gooden stepped on Mr. Pai's left arm, breaking it as well. The reason for this was simple. He couldn't give Mr. Pai any chance to attack him, so he had to break his arms and legs. That way it would be safer for him to ask questions. Mr. Pai was in so much pain that he felt wronged. He was about to speak, so why did you keep stepping on him? Did you want to kill me? Can't you let me finish what I'm saying? Not far away, the two brothers from the Xiao family were shocked. Oh my God, what kind of master was this? He actually killed Pai Yongyang with a single punch, and instantly crippled Mr. Pai's 4 limbs, not even letting him say a word? Was this a one-sided beating? Or was it a question? Chen Tian, on the other hand, was excited. What kind of master was this? Wasn't he too strong? To be able to kill a mystic late-phase peak physical practitioner with one punch, what kind of skill was this? This was an absolute master. It was already amazing to see Pai Yongyang make a dent in the car with a slap, but now this person punched a hole in Pai Yongyang's chest and killed him. It was even more amazing. I'll speak. It's the Xiao family. Xiao family wanted me to kidnap Ming. It's not my fault. I'm just an execution. The Xiao family is the mastermind. Mr. Pai said straightforwardly, without any sense of loyalty. After all, he wasn't from the Xiao family, and he had no obligation to keep the Xiao family's secret. He was about to be killed too. If he spoke up for the Xiao family, wouldn't he be an idiot? Oh, it's the Xiao family after all. Gooden nodded and picked up Mr. Pai, throwing him at the van in front of them, using his body to smash through the metal of the van and into the car, killing him instantly. Gooden clapped his hands. Boss said that if anyone dares touch Ming, I'll kill them. With that, he kicked the van in front of him to the side, clearing the path for the Bentley. Gooden was about to get in when someone ran over, kneeling on the ground with a thud. Master, please take me as your disciple. You really are a master of the physical practitioners. You have to take me as your disciple. It was Wu Chantian. Chen Tian saw how strong Gooden was, and he couldn't miss this chance. From what Gooden could see, this person in front of him was at least an Earth class, killing a mystic late-phase peak so effortless. What else could he be other than an Earth class? He might even be stronger. Who are you? Gooden looked at the kneeling Chen Tian, confused. I'm Wu Chantian, the young master of House Wu. Chen Tian introduced himself. I'm also a physical practitioner, but I'm only golden class early phase. Oh, piss off, I don't have time to take in disciples. I still have to be a bodyguard for my boss. Gooden waved his hand impatiently. Ah, then you can take me in as your follower. I'll be your boss. Chen Tian rolled his eyes and went for the second best option. Follower? What can you do? Gooden wanted to reject, but thinking about it, having a follower wasn't a bad idea. He'd have someone to run errands for him. I can do anything, like something you don't want to do. I can do it for you, as long as you can teach me a move or two. Chen Tian didn't forget to state his goal. Oh, I'll think about it then. I'll have to ask my boss about this. If my boss lets me take you in as a follower, then I'll take you in, but if my boss doesn't agree, then you can go play by yourself, Gooden said. Then who's your boss? Chen Tian paused. My boss is Linny. You wouldn't know him even if I told you. Gooden said impatiently. All right, you can go back first. I'll tell you the result after I ask. Linny? Chen Tian paused. Why was it Linny? Wasn't this his rival in love? But then he remembered that Gooden got off from Meng Yao's car, and Linny was Meng Yao's bodyguard, so it made sense that Linny got his follower to protect Meng Yao. But Chen Tian felt very conflicted. Linny was this guy's boss? Didn't that mean that Linny was stronger than him? And if he took Gooden as his boss, then Linny would be his boss. Would there still be any hope for him in Sun Jingyi? Wouldn't that mean he was fighting with his boss for a woman? That was clearly impossible. And if he took Gooden as his boss, then he'd have to give up on Sun Jingyi. With that thought, Chen Tian started to feel conflicted. But the temptation of increasing his strength made him reluctant to give it up. The opportunity was right in front of him, and it was gone in a blink of an eye. If he missed it, he'd never get another chance. Chapter 1342. Why would a man worry about not having a wife? With that thought, Chen Tian gritted his teeth and made a decision. I know Lin Yi. Can you tell him that I want to be his follower? It was hard for Chen Tian to give up his feelings for Jingyi, but since he'd made the decision, he had to give it up. His feelings for Jingyi weren't just for the sake of his family's benefits. He really did have feelings for her. It was just that she didn't like him, that was all. Oh, you know my boss? Alright, I'll ask him when he comes back. You wait at home. Gooden made sure that this Chen Tian didn't have any intentions of attacking him before leaving. Alright boss, I'll wait for the good news at home. Chen Tian said quickly. Boss, what's your name? What should I call you? I'm Gooden. Gooden said and got in the car. Alright Gooden bro, I'll go back first. Chena nodded and bowed. The Bentley left slowly. The scene here would be taken care of by the Xiao family, and Faubert didn't need to worry about the police coming. Chen Tian looked at the huge hole Gooden made with Mr. Pai and exclaimed, "That's amazing, if I could learn even half of it, I'd be amazing." As for what Xiao family would think, Chen Tian didn't care anymore. With such a powerful boss looking after him, he didn't care about Xiao family or not. The Pai masters were all dead, so what did Xiao family have? In fact, Wangji and Wangba really didn't have time to care about Chen Tian. 2 Pai masters died just like that, and they were already in a mess. These two were idiots and it wasn't a problem for them to act cool, but for them to deal with emergencies it was a bit difficult. Xiao Wangba took out his phone with trembling hands and dialed his father Xiao Ji's number. Hello? Wangba, how's it going? Is it going well? Xiao Ji was sitting in the Xiao family villa, waiting for good news. He's dead. Dad, he's dead. Xiao Wangba stuttered. What do you mean dead? Are Lin Yi and Li Fu both dead? Xiao Ji laughed and said, look at you haven't seen anything big at all. Isn't it just 2 deaths? What's the big deal? If he's dead, so be it. No Dad, it's a master from House Pai. House Pai's master is dead. Wangba gasped for breath. What? 2 masters from House Pai are dead? Xiao Ji paused and said in disbelief, Wangba, what did you say? Are you talking nonsense? How did the 2 masters from House Pai die? Pai Yongyang is a mystic late phase peak. How did he die? Dad, they were killed by some master called Gooden. Wangba heard Gooden's words, so he knew his name. He wasn't there when Gooden punched the leather master, so he didn't know that this Gooden was the warrior from back then. What? Gooden? Xiao Ji sucked in a cold breath. Why? Why is he here? Why did he kill the masters from House Pai? He was sitting in Meng Yao's car, and he called himself Lin Yi's follower? Wangba was confused. Dad, who is this Gooden? Do you know him? Of course I do. Xiao Ji said. Back then, he was the one who sent the 2 masters from House Pai to the hospital. How did he become Lin Yi's follower? Oh my god, it's over. House Xiao is finished, completely finished. Xiao Ji was stunned after hearing his son's word. There was a warrior like Gooden involved in this. No wonder all the masters from House Pai died. How could they not die after meeting this warrior? If they knew this, they wouldn't even bother with House Chu. Wouldn't that be suicide? Ah, that's strong. No wonder the 2 masters from House Pai died with 1 punch. Wangba said, Dad, what do we do now? What else can we do? Just wait for House Pai to blame us. Xiao Ji was speechless. How the fuck did you find out before? Why didn't you say that this warrior was in Lin Yi's house as well? I don't know him. I didn't know he was this strong. Wangba said, feeling wronged. House Xiao is in complete chaos now. Xiao Ji told Xiao Bin what Wangba said, and Xiao Bin was dumbfounded as well. House Xiao was in big trouble this time. Not only did they offend the warrior, but they didn't know if House Pai would blame the Xiao family for this. If House Pai could send someone stronger, then House Xiao still had hope, but if not, then House Xiao would really be done for. Big brother, we can't hide this even if we wanted to. Why don't we call House Pai and tell them the truth? Xiao Ben sighed. We can only push the blame onto the 2 masters from House Pai to avoid this. That's right. This way, we can say that the masters from House Pai were after House Chu's property and went to kidnap them, but they killed them. Xiao Ji nodded. Dead men tell no tales anyway, even if they suspect us, it's useless. Yes, not only that, we have to pretend to be the victims and say that the 2 masters dragged Xiao family into this. To prevent House Chu from taking revenge, we have to ask House Pai to send someone stronger to protect us, Xiao Ben continued. Haha. Us brothers are really genius, we solved a huge crisis just by talking and laughing. Xiao Ji was very happy all of a sudden. All the hatred and danger was pushed onto House Pai, and Xiao family became the victims. Haha, brothers of one mind, we can break metal. Xiao Ben said proudly. It's rare to see brothers like us getting along so well in a noble house. That's right, I'm the head of the house. And I'm a magnanimous person, I don't make decisions on my own. Xiao Ji nodded. With House Xiao covering up the deaths of the two masters from House Pai, this matter passed peacefully, not even causing a ripple. The bodies of the two masters from House Pai were carried to House Xiao's villa, waiting for the people from House Pai to come pick them up and discuss what to do next. On the phone, the people from House Pai heard the news but didn't say much. They only said that they'd send someone to talk about it. Evidently, House Pai was afraid of Gooden, who could kill a mystic late-phase peak with one punch. Chapter 1343. After putting down the phone, Pai Zhishan's face was very serious. He didn't say much to Xiao Ji, but he immediately reported the news to his father, the current head of House Pai. His grandfather, the old ancestor of House Pai, was in isolation, and there was no need to alert him. After hearing his son's report, the head of House Pai, Pai Jiaka's face darkened. How could there be an Earth class in the common world? Didn't the council forbid the Earth class from the hidden houses and sects from entering the common world? Without the council's permission, there will be severe punishment. Father, this is what I'm worried about as well. Do you think it's someone from the ancient sects? Zhishan said hesitantly. Hard to say. Jiaka's face turned even more cautious. If it's someone from there, then even the council wouldn't dare interfere. Then Zhishan asked carefully. Before we find out where Hero Gooden came from, let's not act rashly for now. Pai Jiaka waved his hand. Recently we House Pai have moved into Songshan, and I've done some research on Songshan's area of influence. It's said that the hidden House Xiao's bastard Zhao Qibing was crippled by Gooden's boss Lin Yi. He's still in a wheelchair now. You have to know that House Xiao is the same as us, they're a hidden house as well, yet they were able to hide for so long without doing anything. This means that there's something strange about the power behind Lin Yi. Yeah, I didn't think that Pai Yongyang would be so impulsive making a move on House Chu. Now we're in trouble. Zhishan sighed. It's my fault for not reminding them. I've just investigated the power distribution in Songshan, and I didn't have time to tell Xiao family before they made their move. Pai Jiaka said, we've suffered a loss this time. We can't act rashly, we can only observe for now. Right, father, I heard that Jin Wudi is coming out of seclusion, and he's already gotten permission from the council to enter the common world, and his enemy is this Gooden master's boss, Lin Yi? Zhishan said. Why didn't I think of that? This is great, having an Earth class like Jin Wudi to test Lin Yi's strength isn't bad at all. Hearing this, Pai Jiaka immediately said happily, when the time comes, we'll see what the situation is like and plan our next step. Yes, we can reap the rewards now. Zhishan nodded. On the other side, Gooden was sitting in the car like nothing had happened, his eyes wide open. Oh brother Gooden, you're so powerful. You killed Itchy Skin with one punch. Yushu praised, but you're still a little lacking compared to Shield Bro. And Shield Bro is more handsome than you. Oh, of course boss is stronger than me. Gooden nodded matter-of-factly. Yushu didn't find it interesting at all. This guy really knew his place, but it was pointless. Man, he's not as good as Shield Bro. This bodyguard is too weak. Yushu shook her head. Shield Yup yelled said back. Why does Shu mean shield? Why does Shuashini said. Why Zhishan Shu? Don't worry, she's telling the truth. Gooden nodded. Mengyao didn't know what to say. This guy was too honest. Mengyao didn't know what to say. This guy was too honest. General Wei Wu was sent to a small town by Lu Wangli's men, and Lin Yi went to pick him up personally. He didn't let Lu Wangli's men get close to the tomb. Lin Yi wasn't sure which side the master was from yet, and Linny didn't want to cause any problems. No one was surprised by Linny's action of bringing a dog. Using a dog's sense of smell was a very common method of tomb raiding, but it was too troublesome to train a dog, and modern technology had gradually replaced it over the years. At night, the people in charge of each group appeared in Old Hay's tent. Other than Old Kong, who was killed, everyone else was here. Xiaoka couldn't help but look at Linny a few more times. Linny's words made her feel weird. She felt that Linny looked familiar. Could it be that she'd met Linny before? Otherwise, why would he be so kind as to remind her to be careful? She knew that this was a dangerous trip, but thinking about the orphanage and the high rewards she could get, she decided to stay. Since everyone's here, let's discuss tomorrow's tomb exploration. I don't know who did this today, but I don't want this to happen again tomorrow. I've invited a master to help us. If you're not afraid of death, then go ahead. Old Hay's face was very serious. The first thing he said was a threat. He couldn't be blamed for doing this. He'd lost a master today, and the others didn't lose anything. This pissed Old Hay off, and the worst part was that he still didn't know who did it. He discussed with Old How for a long time about who was the most likely culprit, but the conclusion was that other than the dead Old Kong, the others weren't suspicious. In our country, cyborgs and superhumans are controlled by specialized organization. It's impossible to hire them even if we wanted to. James shrugged, expressing his innocence. You've seen it yourself, my people use modern weapons to kill people. Indeed, out of everyone's firearms, James was the most advanced. The others used normal pistols and submachine guns from the black market. I'm here to hold the line, not cause trouble. Old How said faintly. There's only the three of us. Linny smiled coldly. Aren't we here to discuss business? Are you done yet? If you're not going to discuss, then I'll leave first. You guys continue to suspect. Thief couple, what's the meaning of this? This is a group action. If you're not guilty, then why are you getting all worked up? Old How looked at Linny and smiled coldly. Since you don't believe me, then we'll split up tomorrow. Linny said faintly. That? Old Hay was in a difficult position. Old How, male thief, let's talk less. We'll discuss tomorrow's plan. Chapter 1344. You guys can do whatever you want, but there's only three of us and we have to stick together. Alright, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Linny stood up and left the tent, not giving them any face at all. Old Hay could only smile bitterly, while Old How's eyes sharpened. This male thief really didn't know what was good for him. The night in the mountain was quiet. There were no plants here, only rocks. There weren't many animals here either. It wasn't much during the day, but it was deathly silent at night. Yutian and Lingshan were resting, and Linny was sitting cross-legged, training hard. General Weiwu was beside Linny, not sure if it was asleep or not. All of a sudden, Linny opened his eyes, and General Weiwu raised its head as well. Don't go out, hide in the tent and wait for me. Linny patted General Weiwu. This was Linny's trump card, and he couldn't let it join the fight. The next moment, Linny walked out of the tent without notifying Yutian and Lingshan. They were too weak, and they wouldn't be of much help. Linny would be afraid. Since you're here, stop hiding. Come out. Linny said faintly to the empty space in front of the tent. There was no sound. I don't need to pull you out, do I? Linny smiled faintly. The color of your body is different from the rocks on the ground. As soon as Linny finished, someone stood up from the ground not far away. Not bad, kid, you have good eyes. Since that's the case, you should know why I'm here, right? Did you kill that Mr. Cho today? Linny didn't answer the question. There's no harm in telling you. I was the one who killed him. However, I've come here to kill you. The man who called himself this old man laughed and spoke in a very arrogant manner. There are many people who want to kill me. Linny smiled. Why are you here? Before you die, I will tell you. After the man finished speaking, he charged towards Linny. A huge amount of true qi revolved around his body, allowing Linny to see this person's cultivation for the first time. As expected of an Earth class master. Although he was only at the early phase of Earth class, the gap between him and Linny was not small. Early Earth class. Linny took a deep breath, not daring to be careless. This was an Earth rank master, different from the ones he had faced before. Linny had never fought against an opponent who was much stronger than him, so he had to be cautious. You have good eyesight. To be able to die by this old man's hand, it's a worthy death. The Earth rank expert laughed heartily. In a tent not far away, there were two people sitting. Both of them had an anxious expression on their faces. Lil Lung, why do you think this Mr. Yu is helping me? What's in this tomb that they're interested in? The man who looked like the owner of the tent frowned. Boss, House Yu is a big family. If they're interested in something in this tomb, it must be something important. But didn't they say that they'll only take one item? They don't want the rest, they'll all belong to us. Lil Lung said carefully. Yeah, let's hope so. After this, I'll probably be wanted by the Thieves Association. After doing something like this, I won't have the face to stay in the Thieves Association anymore. The owner sighed helplessly. It's all my fault for being greedy. It's too late to turn back now. House Yu isn't easy to talk to. If I go back on my word, they'll probably kill me without a second thought. Boss, we're just working with House Yu. If this goes well, the treasures in this tomb will be enough for you to live your life in the future. You'll be able to retire and start a proper business. Lil Ling said. And with House Yu's support, it'll be even better than now. That's true. We can only hope for the best now. I wonder if that Linny kid is dead yet, that bastard. The owner said hatefully. If it weren't for him, this would have been a success. Yeah, but with Mr. Yu's help, that kid won't live to see tomorrow's sun. Lil Ling nodded. Linny didn't dare face Mr. Yu's attack head-on. Linny wasn't looking to die yet, so he could only dodge the attack with his speed. Huh, kid, you've got some skills. Mr. Yu didn't put Linny in his eyes at all. When he killed Mr. Chiu, he didn't feel any pressure at all. Someone at Mr. Yu's level would always look down on people who were weaker than him. And so when Linny dodged his attack, Mr. Yu gasped in shock. Linny didn't say anything, waiting for the opportunity. There was no chance of luck against an Earth class like this. He had to hit him in one hit. Otherwise, if he didn't kill him, he'd die first. But even so, Mr. Yu didn't take Linny seriously. He was still toying with him like he was a low-leveled fighter. His attacks were arrogant as well, as if killing Linny was a great honor. Linny dodged again, but Mr. Yu's pure chi hit his right cheek, and Linny's face turned red and swollen. Linny's heart skipped a beat. This was only a small amount of pure chi, and if Mr. Yu had hit him with a single punch, he'd be dead, or at the very least on the verge of death. Kid, you're too weak, don't dodge, I can kill you easily. Mr. Yu laughed when he saw Linny's swollen right cheek. How is it? Does it hurt? Linny humphed coldly and didn't say anything, but he was getting more and more shocked. It seemed like he had to use the energy bomb sooner. Earth class was much harder to deal with than he'd imagined. Most of the people he'd faced before were on the same level as him. Even those who were stronger than Linny were on the same level. But now he'd lost an entire level. Linny made a quick decision and activated the art of dragon mastery, compressing the pure chi in his body. Although Linny had the jade space, Linny didn't dare enter the jade space to get energy when he was fighting an enemy. So he could only compress it with his own energy. Seeing that Linny didn't run and only stared at him coldly, Mr. Yu felt that it was pointless. He wanted to let Linny run first and then kill him from behind. That would be more satisfying, but this kid in front of him didn't seem to care. Chapter 1345. Earth class was a huge leap in strength, and in the eyes of an Earth class, Mystic and Golden class were like ants. Once one entered Earth class, it was a completely different story. This was also why only hidden houses and sects had Earth class masters, and the reason why Earth class masters were forbidden from entering the world was because they were too dangerous. This was a dividing line, and entering Earth class meant entering the camp of Sky class. There was a chance that one could become a Sky class. After reaching Sky class, one's lifespan would lengthen, and this was the dream of all Earth class masters. As for higher levels, they didn't even dare think about it because there had been people who tried to reach that level before, but there was no news of them anymore. You sure you can kill me in one move? Linny was panicking. He was only halfway through the compression, and this Mr. Yu was getting impatient already, preparing to kill him in one move. This made Linny panic. But on the surface, he was stalling for time. What a joke, if I could use half a move you'd still be dead. Lin Yi's questioning made Mr. Yu feel like he was being insulted, and he was enraged. Is that so? Then why didn't you kill me after using so many moves? Lin Yi said slowly, but his heart was urging it to hurry up. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, it's almost done. If Yushu and Xiaoxiao heard Lin Yi's thoughts, they'd probably misunderstand. Miss Pan and Tang Yun were purer, so they wouldn't think too much about it. I was just messing with you, couldn't you tell? Mr. Yu was about to explode. What kind of eyesight did this kid have? Couldn't he tell when he was messing with him? Did he think he was only at this level? I really didn't see it. Lin Yi nodded solemnly, thinking that it was true. Wah, I'm so pissed off, die. Mr. Yu swung his fist at Lin Yi, evidently using 10% of his strength. He wanted to finish off Lin Yi in one hit. Lin Yi sighed inwardly. In the end, he was still a little short and couldn't complete the energy compression. He was already stalling for time. But this old man didn't give him a chance. Die! Lin Yi threw out the energy bomb the moment Mr. Yu charged at him and quickly retreated. Lin Yi didn't hope to kill Mr. Yu with this move, because even 100% compressed energy bomb might not be able to kill an Earth class, let alone an incomplete version. The explosion was loud enough to wake everyone up. Lin Yi didn't believe that Mr. Yu would continue the fight once everyone woke up. If he really wanted to expose himself, there was no need for him to hide. He could have killed everyone in the tomb during the day. This was not a difficult task for an Earth-ranked master. Lin Yi guessed that the reason why he didn't do so was that he wanted to use these people as cannon fodder in the ancient tomb. Boom dash, the energy bomb exploded right in front of Mr. Yu, turning his right arm into a bloody mess. But from Lin Yi's perspective, it was just an injury, and he'd be able to use his right arm after some rest. It didn't cause any more damage than that. But even so, Lin Yi was satisfied. After the explosion, he quickly retreated into his tent, thinking that this Mr. Yu would hide as well. After all, the earth-shattering sound just now was not as loud as the complete version of the energy bomb that Lin Yi used against Ma Zhu. However, it was still earth-shattering. In this quiet valley, only a deaf person would not be able to hear it. Mr. Yu's arm was injured for no reason, and he was furious. Why, rat, how dare you ambush me? What kind of dirty trick are you using? Mr. Yu had never heard of an energy chi bomb before, so he thought that Lin Yi used some kind of modern weapon like a grenade. But a mystic with chi protection wouldn't get hurt so easily, and he was an earth class. How could he get hurt by a grenade? How was this possible? Mr. Yu was confused, but he knew that Lin Yi's loud noise had woken everyone up. He could only endure the pain and hide, wondering if Lin Yi had used something like nitroglycerin or something. At such a close distance, even with his true chi protection, he was blown to such a state. Even if he dodged to the back, he would still be heavily injured, right? With that thought, Mr. Yu calmed down a little. He took out a bottle of medicine from his pocket and sprinkled it on his arm. Mr. Yu was right. Even if Lin Yi dodged to the back with experience, and the energy bomb wasn't the complete version, Lin Yi was still injured. But Lin Yi endured the pain and went back to the tent. Only after entering the tent did Lin Yi's face turn red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground. His face was a little pale as he sat down on the ground and went into the jade space. Ling Shan and Yu Qian, on the other hand, were woken up by the explosion. They were just about to see what was going on when they saw Lin Yi spitting out blood and sitting down on the ground. They wanted to ask what was wrong with Lin Yi, but they didn't dare disturb him right now. They could only wait anxiously on the side. Not long after, footsteps came from outside the tent, followed by a voice. Husband and wife thief, please come to Heibro's tent for a chat. Ling Shan and Yu Tian looked at each other, and Yu Tian walked out of the tent directly, glaring at the person who was talking. What are you shouting for? Master's doing some private stuff right now, wait. Ah! The underling who came to look for the thief, old He, froze after hearing Chan Yu Tian's words. Was he doing something private? What did he mean? But after thinking about it, he understood. The husband and wife thief couldn't be doing something in the middle of the night, could they? It was possible just thinking about it. No wonder this idiot was guarding the door. With that thought, the man said, "Didn't you guys hear the explosion?" "I heard it, but I don't know if the master heard it or not." "They're still inside," Yutian said faintly. Chapter 1346. We can go if we want. We don't need you to say anything. Chun Yutian humphed coldly. What the hell is this? Hey Bro's underling shook his head and left helplessly. It was one thing for this couple to have a bad temper, but their underlings were the same. What was there to be proud of? Mr. Yu quickly bandaged his arm and disappeared into a tent in the night. Elder Yu, you're back. Your arm. What's this? The people in the tent were happy to see Elder Yu come back, but they were shocked when they saw the bandage on his right arm and the bloodstains on his body. That young thief tricked us, and I underestimated his strength. He's actually a mystic. Elder Yu humphed coldly. Didn't you say that he doesn't know martial arts? The people in the tent had an ugly expression on their faces. Elder Yu, I really didn't know that the male thief was a master, and I didn't know that he was a mystic. He never showed his strength in front of us before. I didn't know either. This young man played dirty, using explosives to blow me up. If I wasn't an earth class, I would have lost my arm. But this kid was so close to the explosives when he blew me up, he's not much better off. If we don't treat him in time, he'll probably die. Elder Yu humphed. I said that we'd kill all these kids and leave after we get the items, but you didn't agree. Calm down, Elder Yu, I had no choice. You know, you're a master of the hidden house, Yu, and even if others knew that you killed these people, it wouldn't matter. No one would dare say anything to you, but I'm different. If the entire thief sect were to point their spear at me, I wouldn't be able to take it. The one who spoke was the person called Boss. So what? House Yu will protect you and do some business. Let's see who dares touch you then. Elder Yu humphed in disdain. Of course, but as the saying goes, it's better to be safe than sorry. The boss thought to himself. Although it sounded nice, what would he do if you didn't care about me? Besides, you can protect me for a while, but you can't protect me forever. It's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to guard against a stab in the dark. If you can't take care of it, won't I be in trouble? I don't care, my patience is limited. If I can't take care of these people tomorrow, I'll do it in the open. Elder Yu said impatiently. Okay, I'll try my best. The boss sighed and nodded. Boss, shall we go over? I think most of the people are already here. Xiao Lung reminded him. The boss nodded and left the tent. In Old Black's main tent, everyone was already present. Old Black also brought one of his trusted subordinates in. Looking at everyone present, only the thief couple wasn't present. Old Hey, what the fuck are you talking about? You made all of us come, but you're the last to arrive? Even Old How came earlier than you? James said unhappily. He was sleeping soundly when he was woken up and dragged to Blackie's tent for a meeting. Naturally, he was unhappy. Should I send someone to inform everyone one by one? That's why we've been delayed. Old Hay smiled. All right, Old Hay, it's late. What's the matter? Old How waved his hand, gesturing for everyone to stop arguing. There was a sudden explosion just now, and according to my subordinates, there seemed to be fighting nearby. Did you guys hear it? Old Hay nodded and got straight to the point. I heard it. What was that sound? Did someone use explosives? Old How nodded. I think so too. Moreover, there were traces of blood not far from the thief couple's tent. Old Hay said with a serious expression. And the thief couple didn't come here. I suspect that this matter has something to do with the thief couple. That's a right. Now that everyone's here except the couple, I suggest that we all go to their tent and see what they're up to. Old How nodded in agreement. I've always felt that there's something wrong with this couple. James, naturally, didn't have an objection. There were only 3 groups in the tent, and the organizer and the respected Old How had both agreed. What else could he say? He nodded. I have no objections. You mean there's something wrong with me, old thing? Suddenly, a voice came from outside the tent. The couple pushed the door open and stared coldly at Old How and everyone else. Male thief, aren't you? Old Hao paused when he saw that Linny didn't seem to be hurt at all. What about me? Old Hao? Linny looked at Old Hao with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. Are you confused that I'm not dead or injured? How? How should I know? What does that have to do with me? Old Hao's face darkened. Didn't that old thing with his crippled hand tell you? Tell me that I'm injured as well and might die? Linny asked faintly. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Old Hao's face grew even uglier. You don't understand? Then I'll say it for you before that old thing killed me. He already told me that you sent him to kill me. But he was too arrogant and didn't kill me. I even found out about it. Linny looked at Old Hao mockingly, word for word. Bullshit. Old Hao, this kid is a spy. Everything happened today because of him. Let's kill him together. With that, Old Hao reached for his gun. But Old Hao pulled it out first, pointing it at his head. It's you. You killed Mr. Chiu, didn't you? Old Hao, don't misunderstand. Don't listen to the thief's bullshit. What does this have to do with me? Old Hao jumped, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Old Hao, why are you so impulsive? You invited me here to hold the fort. Why would I kill someone? Yesterday when I insisted on going right, you insisted on going left. Now that I'm on the right path, you insist on going left. What are you planning? Linny asked coldly. I didn't know you were on the right path. Wasn't there a fork? That's why I said to go left. Old Hao explained. Chapter 1347. I thought going back was the right thing to do. Old Hao said in a low voice. What's wrong with that? From my experience, going left is the safest way. It's for everyone's good. Oh, you're that sure? Then we all went right. You could have gone left. Why didn't you? Linny asked. Well, I thought we'd move together, so I went with you guys. Old Hao said. Old Hao, I really admire you. You're willing to sacrifice yourself to the point where you're not afraid of death. If you think it's dangerous for me to go this way, then go back and go left is the way out, and yet you're still following me to the right? What do you want me to say? You're from a suicide squad, aren't you? Linny smiled coldly. You really dare to die? I've already given up on life and death. Old Hao tried to defend himself. Ha! Very well, if that's the case, then you can die now. You've given up on life and death anyway, so it doesn't matter if you die. Linny said faintly. Shoot, Old Hao. Your Mr. Chiu was killed by him. I've been suspecting him since yesterday, and after what he asked me, I'm sure he's the one behind all this. Is that so? Did you get someone to kill Mr. Chiu? Old Hao's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Old Hao. He'd trusted him so much, letting him take control of the situation, but now he'd let the wolf into the house. Old Hao, calm down. Why are you listening to him? I'll say he's the mastermind. You guys don't know, do you? This kid is actually a mystic class. Think about it. A mystic killing a golden class is just a matter of minutes. Old Hao was getting a little hurried. This Old Hao wasn't a reasonable man. He was an impulsive person. Otherwise he wouldn't have pulled out his gun and shot Old Kong yesterday. You're a mystic class? Old Hao paused, looking at Linny suspiciously. I say, Old Hao, aren't you a little too strong? I've been hiding the fact that I'm a mystic class master. I've never told anyone about it. Only the Earth class master who fought with me just now knows about my strength. How did you find out so quickly? Are you a clairvoyant or a diviner? Linny looked at Old Hao mockingly. Old Hao's eyes went wide, his face ashen as he realized he had said the wrong thing. Yeah, the male thief never said he was a mystic and no one knew about it. Not even his peers in the Steel sect knew about it, so how did Old Hao know? Fuck. Blackie did not hesitate at all and pulled the trigger. With a bang, a bloody hole appeared in Old Hao's head. To these grave robbers, killing a person was as simple as eating a meal. If they died, so be it. Lingshan's mouth twitched. She really wanted to stop Old Hao from shooting, but she had no reason to. If she revealed her identity now, everything would be wasted. Not only would she not be able to bring these people to justice, but she, Lin Yi, and Yu Qian would all be in danger. Lin Yi had gotten some rest after coughing up blood before standing up. I'm heavily injured, don't act rashly. Linny endured the pain and brought Lingshan and Yutian to Old Hei's tent. Afraid that Old Hei would suspect him, Linny had quickly entered the jade space and started healing his wounds, but recovering his strength wasn't something that could be done in a short amount of time. That was why Linny told Lingshan and Yutian that Linny was just trying to scare Old Hao and the others. Lin Yi's strength wasn't even at the level of a golden class. James shrugged, a smile that was uglier than a crying face. The traitor's been taken care of, and the rest are innocent. Let's talk about tomorrow's tomb robbery? Thank you, Mr. Thief. Old Hei put away his gun and bowed to Linny solemnly. Mr. Chiu is my bodyguard, but I owe him a debt of gratitude. Now that he's avenged, it's all thanks to you, Mr. Thief. But grave robbers were grave robbers. They might say thank you, but they didn't want to give anything in return. These people were greedy, and so Linny didn't put the gratitude to heart. He only waved his hand and sat down with a serious face. Ha ha ha, that trash is dead. This old man doesn't have to hide anymore. Since Lil Hao's dead, I might as well work with you guys. At that moment, a burst of laughter came from the entrance of the tent, and the next moment, an old man walked in uninvited. Old Hei's face changed when he heard the laughter. This must be the Earth class behind Old Hao. He'd been too impulsive before, and he'd forgotten about this. Now that he was here, he was a little scared. This was an Earth class. To mortals like them, he was like a mountain. You don't deserve to know my name, you can call me Elder Yu. The old man turned to Lin Yi surprised. Kid, you've surprised me. You're not hurt? Humph. Lin Yi humphed coldly. You're not dead either, are you? Yes, your little tricks are nothing in front of me. You want to kill me with explosives? Try a missile next time. Elder Yu said faintly. But Lil Hao's dead, I see that you're good at tomb raiding, so I won't touch you for now. Let's talk about working together. Mr. Chiu, did you kill him? Old Hei came back to his senses. So what if I did? Could it be that you want revenge for him? Elder Yu smiled darkly as he looked at Old Hei. I wouldn't dare. Old Hei wasn't an idiot, he could kill Old Hao with one shot, but an Earth class? Even the explosives couldn't kill him, what use was a gun? Plus, this old man didn't seem to be with Old Hao, right? From what he said, he was just working with Old Hao, and now that Old Hao is dead, he wanted to work with the people here. I know you wouldn't dare. Elder Yu said, pleased. But I don't know this Cho guy, blame Lil Hao. He told me to kill him. Yes, I've killed Old Hao. Old Hei was a smart man, and he said respectfully, how would you like to work together, Elder? Chapter 1348. Oh. Old Hei paused. He didn't think that Elder Yu's condition would be this simple. He just needed to take one thing and leave the rest. He'd be an idiot if he didn't agree. What do you want? James asked. Since Elder Yu had already made his stance clear, and they were working together, they didn't have to worry about him attacking them. Don't worry about that. Elder Yu said faintly. Just say yes or no, my patience is limited. All right. Old Hei smiled bitterly. Did they have a choice? If they didn't agree, they'd all die here, right? They were Earth class, there was no way they could fight back. All right, it's settled then. Elder Yu nodded. You guys are more obvious than that little Hausie, don't try to hide things. Did I promise you? At this time, Lin Yi suddenly interrupted. Ah. Old Hei and James paused. Brat, do you want to die? Elder Yu heard Lin Yi's words and felt humiliated. He turned to glare at Lin Yi. Don't think I don't dare kill you. You can't kill me, I'll just use another chi bomb and blow you up. Lin Yi said faintly. Chi bomb? Elder Yu paused. You used a chi bomb just now, not explosives? Are you retarded? You bring explosives with you? Lin Yi curled his lips. I didn't think that, brat, you have some skills. Elder Yu frowned. I don't think you can use it again. You can try. Lin Yi said nonchalantly. What's the point of all this bullshit? What do you want? Elder Yu had been bombed by Lin Yi before, and he was still a little afraid of that chi bomb. He didn't dare to try it. As far as Elder Yu was concerned, he was like a piece of porcelain, and these tomb robbers were crazy. Who knew if they would do something like that? Elder Yu didn't dare to try it again. Tell me, what do you want? Lin Yi asked. Elder Yu's face changed slightly, a little sullen, but after a moment of silence he said, "It's said that Zhang Liju's medical skills were amazing, and he had made qi-gathering pills for practitioners before. In his grave, there's a high chance that there's a completed qi-gathering pill." Qi-gathering pill? Lin Yi paused. He seemed to have heard of this name before, from a certain legendary record, but he didn't have much of an impression of it. He only remembered that it seemed to be beneficial to practitioners. "If there is, I'll take it. If there isn't, I don't want anything." Elder Yu said. "This qi-gathering pill, what does it do?" Lin Yi asked. "It's fine to tell you. It can help an Earth-class late-phase peak break through their bottleneck and step into Sky-class." Elder Yu said. "Even if you get it, it's useless." Even old Hay and James, who weren't practitioners, had a shocked expression on their faces. It could help an Earth-class late-phase peak break through their bottleneck and step into Sky-class. What kind of powerful medicine was this? If this pill was put on the market, it wouldn't be surprising if it was sold at a sky-high price. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was a priceless treasure. He believed that those hidden families and sects would break their heads to get their hands on this pill. No matter the price they had to pay, they had to get their hands on it. One could say that all the antiques in an ancient tomb weren't as valuable as this qi-gathering pill. But this qi-gathering pill, even if they had the life to get it, they wouldn't be able to sell it. Hidden houses and sects weren't something these grave robbers could deal with. These people didn't even bat an eyelid. They were even crueler than grave robbers. Who would dare to do business with them? So they could only think about it. If they really held it in their hands, they'd be in trouble. If they were practitioners or from a noble house, of course they'd trade fairly with them. But if they weren't, then sorry, they'd have to kill them and take the pill. On the other side, Xiaoke, Lingshan, and Yuqian were all in disbelief. There was such a powerful medicine in this world? It could help an Earth-class late-phase peak break through their bottleneck? Oh. Lin Yi nodded disapprovingly and said, "What if there are two? Would you only take one?" Elder Yu's face changed, feeling a little annoyed. What was wrong with this kid? Did he not know any better? He said he'd only take one thing, but if there were two pills, naturally he'd take them as well. One thing was just a reference, it didn't mean that he'd only take one. Bullshit, of course I'd take it as well, this counts as one thing. Elder Yu humphed. Is that so? Then other than this, you don't want anything else? Lin Yi said coldly. You've already gone back on your words, and I don't trust your trustworthiness. You have no trustworthiness at all. What can I do if you go back on your word? Why ask if you know there's no other way? Elder Yu was pissed. Was there something wrong with this kid? Why ask this bullshit if he knew there was no other way? So, you admit that you're interested in something else other than this? Lin Yi smiled coldly. If I'm not mistaken, you have something more important you want. And this pill is just a pretense. You're not an idiot, aren't you afraid of us coveting it? You're telling us what it's for, aren't you? There's only one reason you're doing this, and that's to divert our attention away from something more important. Am I right? Elder Yu's face was a little ugly. He didn't think that Lin Yi's analysis would be so thorough. He'd said everything in his heart. And Lin Yi was right this time. House Yu's plan wasn't as simple as the qi-gathering pill. There were other things. But this other thing could be replicated, and so Elder Yu didn't want to say it already. If everyone asked to make a copy, then he'd be in a difficult position. If they could get out of the tomb smoothly after entering, then Elder Yu wouldn't care. What he was afraid of was that it wouldn't be easy to get out after entering, and he couldn't afford to offend these tomb robbers anymore. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't know all these traps. Chapter 1349. Elder Yu was very confident that he could do this without anyone noticing. Even if Lin Yi was a mystic, he wouldn't be able to keep an eye on him, right? So in order to confuse everyone, Elder Yu said something that wasn't very important. He even made the decision that if they found more than one qi-gathering pill, and these people wanted it, then he'd give one to Lin Yi. As long as Lin Yi didn't cause any trouble, the others wouldn't be a problem to Elder Yu. But he didn't expect Linny to be this smart. He really underestimated this tomb robber. If he knew he was this smart, he would have worked with the couple instead of that idiot old How. However, as matters stood, the two of them were already standing on opposite sides. It was practically impossible for them to mend their relationship. Humph, this old man said it without hesitation because this old man doesn't care about you juniors at all. Even if I tell you, can you take it from my hands? Elder Yu, naturally, wouldn't admit his motives so easily. Is that so? Not necessarily. Linny said faintly. Why don't I try? Old Hay and James gasped at the male thief's domineering. Wasn't this guy a little too fierce? Even if he was a mystic, why didn't he feel any fear when facing an Earth class? It was as if he was trying to steal food from the tiger's mouth. Junior, don't think that I won't kill you. Elder Yu humphed coldly. Kill me? Come on, haven't you heard of this saying? I can't beat you, but I can still blow you up. Linny said with disdain. Elder Yu almost spat out blood. Why was this kid acting like a criminal? Risking his life for no reason? What kind of logic was this? Don't talk so much, I've made myself clear enough. It's up to you guys whether you want to cooperate or not. Elder Yu didn't want to talk to Linny anymore. You're the one who begged us to cooperate. If you don't explain your purpose clearly, I can't let you participate. Linny still insisted indifferently. Elder Yu was so pissed that his chest heaved up and down. He wanted to kill Linny, but this kid in front of him just had to play with some chi bomb or whatnot. Elder Yu didn't want to be blown up again when he attacked. Why is this brat like a porcupine? I can't hit him even if I want to. It's really depressing. But Elder Yu really didn't want to tell them his goal. It was too important. Elder Yu's other goal this time was Zhang Liju's medical notebooks, because there was a high chance that the recipe for the qi-gathering pill was recorded in there. There might even be the recipe for intermediate and high-level qi-gathering pills. This was a pill that was even better than a normal qi-gathering pill. With these things, House Yu would become the strongest hidden house in the world. They might even be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the ancient sects. If this medical notebook was the most important thing, then there was something even more important than this: the notes of a refiner. Zhang Liju was a master of medicine and elixir refinement, but elixir refinement was a profession that had disappeared a long time ago. When people talked about elixir refinement, the first thing they thought of were necromancers. But in the ancient Wulian world, elixir refiners did exist. These people were the most important resources of the ancient sections. They could make elixirs that could heal wounds, increase strength, and recover stamina. This wasn't something a normal doctor could do. Speaking of pills, most people now believe that as long as one had the recipe, and according to the dosage on the recipe, all one had to do was gather all the ingredients and mix them into a pill. In reality, this wasn't the case. This kind of pill was more than enough to cure bodily ailments, but to raise one's power and quickly recover one's stamina, it required precise fire control and purification before it could be made into a pill. It was just that the profession of alchemist had disappeared a long time ago. Even in the current hidden aristocratic families, there was no such existence. The reason why the hidden house you knew about this was because the old master of house you had read about this in the ancient ruins and had been paying attention to the news of the refiner. After that, he found out that the medicine saint was Zhang Liju's other identity as a refiner from the ancient records. So this time, when Zhang Liju's tomb was discovered, House Yu placed a lot of importance on it. They risked punishment from the noble house council and secretly sent an earth class to the tomb. Other than the qi-gathering pill and the medical notebook, the most important thing was the refiner's notes. If the hidden house you could have a refiner, then the entire structure of the hidden houses and the ancient sects would change. How could Elder Yu tell these tomb robbers about such an important thing? If the news got out before House Yu had a refiner, the ancient sects would be after it. That would be a disaster for House Yu. More than 10 years ago, a sect was annihilated. Although it wasn't an ancient sect, it was the kind of sect that was on par with the hidden houses. It was said that the young master of this sect had a treasure that could speed up training, and that's why they were in trouble. And how could House Yu protect such an important refiner's notes? If it wasn't for Lin Yi, this male thief, then Elder Yu wouldn't have to be so careful. It wouldn't matter even if he told them, because he was confident that once they left the tomb, he would be able to kill all of them. Even if he gave each of them a copy of the notes, it wouldn't matter. He could just take it back when the time came. But now there was this unknown factor, Lin Yi. With Lin Yi's chi bombs, Elder Yu felt that it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape from his hands. So he really couldn't let Lin Yi copy the notes. He had no choice but to give up on the medical notebooks. Giving Lin Yi a copy wouldn't be of much use to him. Even if there was the formula for the chi-gathering pill in there, he wasn't a refiner, and he wouldn't be able to make it. With that thought, Elder Yu said in a low voice, "Humph, you guessed it right. So what if it is? There is indeed something I want in the tomb, the medical notes of the medical saint Zhang Liju. Even if you want it, it's useless. This thing can't be sold for much, it can't compare to those antiques." Chapter 1350. Lin Yi's eyes froze. Medical notes? Very good, I wasn't planning on killing you. But since you're trying to steal my notes, that means you're trying to steal Xiao Xiao's life. You can go die now, you old bastard. But Lin Yi's body was very weak right now. He was acting very cocky, but he knew himself well. Elder Yu didn't have a cheat like Lin Yi, who could see through other people's strength. He couldn't see through Lin Yi's strength when he wasn't channeling his chi, so he wasn't afraid that he'd see through his act. But if the two of them really started fighting, then Lin Yi's weakness would be obvious. So no matter how much killing intent Lin Yi had, he could only choose to hold it in for now. Since he'd forced Elder Yu to reveal his true intentions, Lin Yi would just let him go a little. When he recovered his strength, he'd find a chance to heavily injure him in the tomb, or even kill him outright. So it's this thing, it really isn't that useful, but it's useless. I'll still make a copy, and I'm interested in your chi-gathering pellet. If there are two of them, can you give me one? Lin Yi's goal was to distract Elder Yu. If Lin Yi just let it go, then Elder Yu would be suspicious. He'd been acting cocky for so long, and now he'd just let it go? Elder Yu sighed and nodded. For the notes, he could only agree to Lin Yi's request. Lin Yi was only a mystic, but he was an unstable factor that gave him a headache. Sure, but I'll only give you one if there are two. If there's only one, then I'll take it myself. Elder Yu said. As for the notes, you can make a copy if you want, but it's best if you don't spread it. It won't do you any good. Deal. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Old Hay and James were envious of Lin Yi negotiating with Elder Yu, but there was nothing they could do. Lin Yi had the strength and capital, but they didn't. Since that's the case, this old man will go with you tomorrow morning. Elder Yu let out a breath of relief after getting Lin Yi's confirmation. He walked out of the tent satisfied. He needed to find a place to heal his wounds. His right hand was destroyed by Lin Yi, and he lost quite a bit of battle strength. He needed to recover as soon as possible. After Elder Yu left, Lin Yi stood up as well. If there's nothing else, I'll be going as well. Now that there are fewer people, what about the distribution of benefits in the tomb? Old Black hesitated for a moment before asking. 50-50. Lin Yi looked at Old Black and said, "Do you have any objections?" 50-50? Old Black smiled bitterly. After 50-50, wouldn't he and James be left with only 5-50? He'd get 30% at most, the same as before, but he'd killed two people, so there was no benefit at all. What, you don't agree? Lin Yi looked at Old Black coldly. I agree. I agree. Old Black nodded. He didn't dare to disagree. As far as he was concerned, the male thief had the ability to bargain with that earth class, so what couldn't he do with him? He had to lower his head. The tomb raiding this time was already beyond his expectations. He wouldn't have come if he knew that there would be so many dangers. Lin Yi didn't say anything else as he walked out of the tent with the girls. The moment he walked out of the tent, Lin Yi's face lost all its color, becoming terrifyingly pale. Lin Yi had been very weak all this time, and he hadn't even recovered his stamina yet. He only did a simple treatment on his internal injuries, and it could be said that he had been forcing a smile. Lin, male thief, what's wrong? Ling Shan saw the color on Lin Yi's face and quickly went up to support Lin Yi. She didn't want to call out Lin Yi's name, fearing that the walls might have ears. I'm fine. I was heavily injured just now. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. An earth class. I'd be lucky if I didn't die in his hands. That's right. Ling Shan and Yutian froze at the same time. This was Lin Yi. Anyone else, even if they were mystic late phase peak, would be considered weak in the eyes of an earth class? How could they escape? Not to mention that they'd be able to bargain with an earth class. Ling Shan and Yutian couldn't help but admire Lin Yi's performance. Other than Lin Yi, there really wasn't anyone else who could do this as a mystic. Then can you still go to the tomb tomorrow? Ling Shan asked worriedly. It's fine, I'll be fine after a night's rest. Lin Yi smiled. Let's go, hold me and bring me back quickly. Don't let anyone see us. Okay. Ling Shan nodded and quickly helped Lin Yi back to his tent with Yutian on his left and right. Elder Yu, on the other hand, was in a rush to find a place to heal. He wasn't in the mood to stay and observe Lin Yi. He found a dark spot and sat down cross-legged, starting to cultivate. Not long after sitting down, however, Elder Yu's phone rang. He thought it was the hidden house Yu, but it was the common house Yu's number. Hello? Elder Yu picked up without hesitation. Shuixing, is that you? Big brother, it's me. Shuixing said quickly. Big brother, you're out of house Yu now, right? How was it? Did the mission go smoothly? It didn't go very smoothly. There was a young mystic, but it was very strange. He actually injured me. Elder Yu said. Shuixing, didn't I tell you not to call me as you please? This mission is a secret and I only told you about it. But even so, it's better if we don't contact each other. If the Arbitration Association finds out, the hidden house you will be punished. Is that so, big brother? Then after you're done here, you can't come back to house you to support us? Shuixing was a bit disappointed. Our common house you has been going downhill ever since you left. If you don't come back to scare those bastards, we won't be able to keep our position in the noble house meeting. No, I already said that I came out in secret. If the Arbitration Association finds out, there'll be a lot of trouble. I can't show my face in public. Elder Yu said. Not only will this affect the hidden house Yu, but it'll also affect myself. Chapter 1351. If I complete the mission given to me by the hidden house Yu, then they'll help me submit an application to the council, and I'll be able to participate in the noble house meeting and watch over house Yu. Elder Yu said. But not this time. That's fine. Shuixing nodded. Why don't you kill that Lin Yi first? He's the one who killed third brother. I'll see if this mission goes well. I'll go to Songshan to look for Lin Yi. And if I find him, I'll kill him on the way. If I don't have enough time, then we'll have to wait for the next time. Elder Yu said. That's the only way. Big brother, I won't disturb you anymore, Shuixing said. After hanging up, Elder Yu frowned and cursed in his heart. Lin Yi, this old man will take your life one day. But to Elder Yu, the biggest enemy right now was that male thief of the mystic class. This man was troublesome for Elder Yu. Since when did common world tomb robbers become this strong? They were too strong. In Lin Yi's tent, Lin Yi sat down cross-legged as soon as he entered, using every second to heal himself. Ling Shan and Yutian looked at each other. They both had some questions they wanted to ask Lin Yi, but they knew that this wasn't the best time, so they chose to stay silent, protecting Lin Yi from both sides. Tonight was perhaps the most dangerous night for Lin Yi. Yesterday it was Lin Yi who protected them, and tonight they'd protect Lin Yi. Lin Yi entered the Jade Space in a hurry to train, but it wasn't the kind that forced him into the Jade Space when he was injured or unconscious, so Lin Yi could still sense what was going on outside. Seeing Ling Shan and Yutian protecting him, Lin Yi felt a warmth in his heart. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. This morning, Lin Yi didn't wake up as early as usual, opening his eyes very late. Ling Shan and Yutian, on the other hand, stayed up all night guarding Lin Yi. Luckily, they were people who often stayed up late, and they were golden class late phase peak as well, so it wasn't too much of a problem for them to stay up all night. There were sounds of people waking up, But no one came to Lin Yi's tent to wake Lin Yi up. Lin Yi's performance yesterday had already shocked Old Hay and the others, and Old Hay wouldn't be stupid enough to get someone to wake Lin Yi. Plus, Mr. Yu didn't show up, so what was the point of calling Lin Yi? 10 in the morning, Lin Yi walked out of his tent. Lin Yi was full of energy now, without any signs of injury. Elder Yu came late as well. He was a practitioner genius, but the qi here was too sparse. Even deep in the mountains, Elder Yu's right hand hadn't healed yet, and he was still wrapped in bandages. "Can we go now?" Elder Yu said faintly. "Let's go." Lin Yi didn't say anything and walked towards the cliff. Old Hay, James, and Xiaoke took the simple lift, while Lin Yi, Lingshan, and Yutian followed Elder Yu, jumping down the cliff to the thieves' cave. Elder Yu looked at Lingshan and Yutian, who came down with Lin Yi, and his eyes narrowed. He didn't think that the female thief and follower of the couple were Golden Class Late Phase Peak as well. This tomb raiding group wasn't simple at all. Elder Yu came to the hidden house from the common world naturally. He knew that Golden Class Masters were rare in the common world. In this group of grave robbers, having a Golden Class Master like Mr. Cho yesterday was already a miracle. But this couple actually had 3 practitioners. No wonder the couple only came out with a small number of people, and weren't afraid of people taking advantage of them. They were all practitioners, especially that male thief. He was a thorn that couldn't be touched. If you touched him, you'd stab yourself until your hands were covered in blood. The male thief is not simple after all. The people beside him are practitioners as well, and they're all Golden Class Late Phase Peak, just one step away from Mystic. Elder Yu said faintly, "Thanks for the compliment." Lin Yi smiled and didn't say anything else. Old Hay, James, and Xiaoke got on the elevator one after another. But this time they didn't bring any helpers with them. They knew very well that their helpers were nothing in Elder Yu's eyes. Even against Lin Yi, it was like cutting a watermelon, 1 slash for each. And so, Old Hay didn't even call for his helpers, because even if they came, they wouldn't be able to fight against Elder Yu. This time the searchlight didn't malfunction. Last time the searchlight had malfunctioned halfway, and now that they thought about it, it was Old Hao's doing. He was the only one who could mess with the equipment first. The group successfully arrived at the mechanism at the entrance of the underground palace. They did not take the wrong path like yesterday. The entrance to the underground palace was also blown up by explosives. Obviously, it was the work of the tomb robber. As for whether he had entered the underground palace or not, it was unknown. At least, it could not be seen on the surface. "It's here." Old Hay saw the entrance to the underground palace that had been blown open and couldn't help but exclaim in joy. There was a rock blocking that way before. Clearly, the person who blew up the thief's hole realized that there was something wrong with that path, so he blocked it with a rock. The real thief's hole is here. The group looked at where Old Hay was pointing at, and saw that there was a roulette on the stone door, similar to the combination lock on a safe. On the stone door, there were traces of explosives, probably the work of the tomb raider. However, it was obvious that the material used for this stone door was unusually strong. Ordinary explosives couldn't destroy the stone door at all. However, they didn't dare to use explosives that were too strong. After all, this ancient tomb was excavated inside the mountain. If explosives that were too strong were to be used, it might directly cause the mountain to collapse. Even if the stone door was destroyed, the passage would also collapse, and everyone would be buried alive inside. It's this stone door. I've done a lot of research and I know how to open it, but I don't know if it'll work. Old Hay said humbly. In fact, he said this because he had a certain degree of confidence. After all, this was only the first step and it was relatively easy. Then why don't you try it? Elder Yu said impatiently. You're tuning into the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.